this one. Here's Williams pumping, looking, taking his time all day to throw it. Buys more time. Sidearm throw, and it's caught. Washington across the field. Hits the sideline. Touchdown, USC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by SicEm365.com.
Florida drops into a zone. Daniels trying to run it. Got some space. What a move! Jaden Daniels again! Jaden Daniels, touchdown LSU! 51 yards! With
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Snap to May. He's going to take a shot. Walker is his target and makes the catch.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
J.J. McCarthy looking over the middle. Caught! Touchdown, Wolverines! Roman Wilson. J.J. McCarthy threw that one off his back foot.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
Play action and Boats next taking the deep shot for Johnson. How about that? Brothers, touchdown.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
Take a shot down the field, looking for Odunze, and he holds it in.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
All right, here we go on this Tuesday afternoon. Some college football news. The portal with a couple of nuggets as far as some names and one or two that are surprising. And yet again, nothing is surprising anymore. Also, the NCAA, yet again, looking at what they can do with the analysts on college football coaching staffs. We've discussed that, like Gary Patterson for 2 years at Texas or now at Baylor, and what they can do perhaps into the future. Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina. I'm David Smoak, and Jack McKenzie, Garrett Ross helping run the mothership. Emory will be a part of this too before it's said and done. All right, Terrence Brooks. How about this one, guys? And this is, I've seen a couple of the Texas writers that have said this is kind of a head scratcher. He is a highly recruited player. He was a starter, had 3 picks last year, started 13 games for the Horns, who of course played in the semifinal game, and he has at least entered the portal. And that's a nugget right there for whoever can pick him up if he doesn't change his mind.
Yeah, and look, yesterday, I don't think we said this on the air, but we were talking about like they've lost if you look at the numbers of players that have left Texas, they've got a considerable chunk of their roster that left, but none of the guys that left are anywhere near the caliber of or up the depth chart like Terrence Brooks is, who's an actual starter. Texas has not lost a starter. They have not lost those guys. Those guys are retained and there. And for whatever reason, Terrence Brooks feels like he needs a change of scenery, and I'm sure the SEC's thrilled with that, given the fact that he won't be at Texas if he does, in fact, leave, because he's a very solid player. I mean, this isn't, this isn't maybe like the best cornerback in the portal, but he's one of the best ones. He had 3 picks last year. He's steady. He started 13 games.
Long and rangy.
Honorable Big 12 All-Mention, a former 5-star recruit. So he's going to be somebody that is sought after when he gets into the portal, and if he does, in fact, decide to leave. So this is the first one that Texas now has to make a decision on who's going to start if they can't replace him in the portal, and if he does, in fact, leave.
Yeah, I mean, that's not one I was expecting. Granted, not boots on the ground or locked in on everything Longhorn all the time. So maybe this was put out there as a possibility, but I hadn't seen that if that was the case. And, I mean, we just saw him in the spring, just spring game, so that's he was on the receiving end of one of those Arch Manning passes that we saw 1,000 times. So, or not the receiving end. He's on the coverage end of one of those touchdowns. But, a really good player, solid player, a starter, as y'all mentioned, and a guy who based on everything I had read previously, was still expected to be a big contributor. Obviously, they had pursued corners this offseason. Muhammad was one of those that they had gone after, Jabbar Muhammad, but did not land him. And so clearly there's a need, but now I guess there's a greater need. And, yeah, I'm a little bit taken aback by this. I know that he wasn't perfect by any means, still a young guy with some room to grow, had some issues in coverage from time to time, but not to the extent that I was thinking that they'll push him out, as you see teams doing, trying to flip over their roster. So, yeah, that's a really interesting note and a bit surprising.
I saw that term head scratcher with more than one or two people who cover Texas, and then in the end, they will probably be able to find somebody of equal value, if not better, because they're really good now. What they can do is just pick and choose like they did the Arizona defensive linemen. But they, at times last year in the secondary, struggled. Obviously, Penix picked them apart.
Yeah.
And then in the spring game, obviously, Manning, Owens, and even Ewers picked them apart.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely had some coverage issues. Muhammad ended up going to Oregon, so that's a guy that, like I said, that they had been targeting, looking for some more help. Don't know where they turn now. They are at a point, though, where they're pretty good shape. I mean, I don't think they're going to have too hard of a time going out and finding guys. But then again, as you pointed out, last year, if there was a weakness on that team, it was in the secondary. So I'm not sure how much that changes kind of what their overall game plan was and how involved he was in that game plan. But I'm sure we'll talk to a Texas writer at some point who can fill in some more of the blanks here.
All right, so that's one of the names. The other one, Dylan Edwards. He's a good player. Heck of a running back, Colorado. He has entered the portal. Of course, they got the young man from Ohio State yesterday, so he is on his way out. I saw Sean Keeler, who joined us on Friday's show, who wrote the column about all that Louis Vuitton luggage that Dion has in his private jet. Sometimes he forgets the luggage wherever there's check-in, but they've been able to recover some talent or depth or whatever in the last 2 or 3 days. But this one here, boy, he's a good player. He's one of those that when Colorado had the playmakers, it was Shedeur, it was Edwards, obviously
Travis Hunter,
the two-way player, but he was one of the guys that made plays for them last year.
Oh, and there will be people after Dylan Edwards. I mean, he was one of their most reliable players on offense, and even though it wasn't really rushing the ball, it was catching the ball in short passes and taking it a long way. So, yeah, this is a hit for them. Look, they did get Dylan Hallman from Ohio State, but I do think losing Dallin Hallman, losing Dylan Edwards will be really tough. And I mentioned to Garrett, look, there's a dearth at running back at LSU, so might be a guy that they want to look after. And with Alton McCaskill leaving because he was going to be RB1, well, that was clearly going to be Dylan Edwards, I would think. But then Hallman comes in, and he's probably now run RB1 at Colorado. And Dylan Edwards is off to the transfer portal, and Deion Sanders is still having trouble building some continuity there at Colorado. And look, the transfer portal's great, and you can do a lot with it. But if it is your, sole source of, water for the lawn, I don't think that's going to be very good.
Yeah, Dallin Hayden's who you're thinking of from Ohio State. But this is a guy we just asked about the other day with our Colorado writer. Was talking about, so what's the plans? It's Dylan Edwards, at running back, and mentioned Dallin Hayden. And now it's Hayden. And I, fill in the blanks after that. I mean, they've lost almost an entire room to the transfer portal this offseason just at running back alone. So, yeah, we thought Alton McCaskill was, a bit of a loss potentially, but now Edwards goes in. So for all of those questioning what's going on in Boulder, Colorado, and what's happening with Deion's roster and is all hell breaking loose, I mean, they're just giving more fuel today to further ignite those conversations. But, yeah, definitely something's off. I mean, it's not just house cleaning, because it's hard to imagine that there's this amount of guys that are like you're better off without, especially a guy who was a pretty significant contributor last year, which is not saying a whole lot because their running game sucked. But when they did have one, he was part of that. And I would take a long look at Kansas State here. I mean, that's where he was committed for a while. He signed with Notre Dame. But K-State, I would think, would be more than happy to try and welcome him back into the fold, since they were clearly high on his talent to begin with, and just were unfortunately not able to reel him in initially. So, yeah, I mean, he's going to have some suitors, but if I'm looking at the fit that makes the most sense, Kansas State seems like a good place to start.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because I saw this from Andy Staples when somebody made the comment that Dylan Edwards leaving into the transfer portal doesn't make any sense. Avery Johnson, you know him?
Yeah, the former Mavericks head coach, former
Kansas
Spurs guard.
Yeah. He said home. He put like a little emoji up, home. And maybe connection there. You mentioned Kansas State.
That's a lot of speed if they hit that.
Yeah.
You know, and look, they still have Dylan Giddens, right?
DJ Giddens,
DJ Giddens there. So, yeah, they still have Giddens. I mean, that's a heck of a running offense there for Kansas State, which is what Chris Kleiman would want. But, again, I'm gonna say Garrett needs to get on this and call Brian Kelly and say there's running backs available. You better go get one because, you know, running backs and wide receivers are kind of what LSU does.
Yeah, no, they do. And so there we are with Dylan Edwards, who will have already probably had dozens of text messages if he didn't know already where he might end up.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good sign that Avery Johnson posted that. I mean, he'd be electric. Obviously, I'm joking about the former whiny-sounding NBA coach who I do have love for, Avery Johnson. But, yeah, as far as this Avery Johnson, who we're just seeing the beginnings of, I think, as far as how special and good he can be, he seems like a guy who's definitely got that aura about him that other guys would want to play with him. And if you can sit there and say, like, hey, it's got you and me and DJ Giddens and, you know, everybody else that you want to name off that's got potential to play, I think that'd be awfully appetizing for Dylan Edwards potentially. So we'll see. I mean, he gets to go through recruiting all over again, and don't know what kind of offers will be out there for him. But, yeah, that's definitely one to watch in Big 12 country.
This is interesting. Bryce Foster was a highly ranked player that he signed with A&M, and so was Bobby Taylor. There's offensive lineman Dorian Hinton as more players. This is from Carter Carrells, hitting what appears to be the portal, saying they're not on right now the 2024 roster. Now, Paul, you sent this earlier. I clicked on it, and it was deleted. It's now there and has been there, but none of those names yet are in the portal. But I remember when Foster was a commit, a big-time offensive lineman, played a 3-year starter. But one of the things concerned about him has been the injury bug.
Well, they did just get a center from Utah in to transfer for them.
Yep.
You know, Bobby Taylor, just in particular, you know, he kind of felt like one of those Jimbo home runs. But again, they keep on, you know, A&M's going to have less players, and of course this is the transfer portal era, but maybe faster that were recruited and signed by Jimbo Fisher than maybe any coaching change ever, it seems like, because he was a huge recruiting win for A&M.
Oh, yeah, no, I mean, the lineage and everything about him, I mean, again, some of the players who say, there's been some players who have entered the portal and then all of a sudden they've taken their names out of it, but most of the time, about 9 out of every 10 who enter the portal are going to end up in another program at some point, not soon, not too far after the time that they enter it. Michigan State defensive lineman has entered the portal. Again, we're not going to mention everybody, but today was a little bit busy. This guy had 65.5 tackles, 6.5 TFLs, a disruptive player, has entered the portal. A defensive end. Defensive lineman, remember what I mentioned, what Bud Elliott said earlier in the week, or maybe it was at the end of last week, that the SEC even needs defensive linemen, right? That's where they're bred. But that he felt like there were 6 players that would end up in the portal out of the Big Ten who played that defensive tackle or interior defensive lineman position. And he responded to this one, including Michigan State defensive lineman Harmon. Here's one of those that Craig's, I guess, trend. Louisville defensive back Wesley Walker, who transferred to Louisville, we've seen this before this year, from Tennessee earlier this year, has re-entered the portal. Hummer with the story, Chris Hummer, and that's from 247 Sports, was a starter at Tennessee, began his career at Georgia Tech, prior to Tennessee, Louisville, and now perhaps somebody else.
Look, he and Penny Boone, and now Tyler Barron, the defensive end from Tennessee, who had initially committed to Ole Miss and then changed a month later to Louisville in the transfer portal. That's 3 guys. Tyler Barron just jumped into the portal about 15 minutes ago, at least officially. So he was one of the most sought-after defensive ends on the market. So Louisville still has a really good portal class, but maybe not quite as good as they thought it was going to be, because Penny Boone down to Georgia and Kentucky, Wesley Walker on his way out the door, and Tyler Barron on the way out the door. After the ruling this fall with Raekwon Battle, or earlier this winter with Raekwon Battle, it opened the floodgates for the potential of this. I just thought that, maybe that'd be kind of a lot, because if you've already decided to transfer, maybe you'd want to go through at least a season with a team before you transfer it again. But apparently spring football is enough.
It's goofy. The whole thing is goofy, man.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I just think that the crazy amount of indecision or the pulling in various ways of players, no matter where they are at any time, is just kind of crazy. The bouncing around's nuts. It makes for interest and some excitement in some cases, but man, it's really hard. Like, if you're a Louisville fan, are you just totally fed up at this point?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, how are you going to? Is your first thought like, let me go check the message boards? It's like, no, like screw this, man. Like, what am I doing? So yeah, that's unfortunate. Penny Boone, good for him. I guess he got better offers, although the last we heard, he wasn't even cracking the starting job at Louisville. I don't know how much merit there was to that. That was the report whenever he entered the transfer portal. But here you have Georgia and who it was?
Kentucky
that are,
has 2 good places, man.
That no running backs.
Yeah.
So clearly they like some. He was a really good player at Louisville. So, yeah, I mean, one of those two will get a really solid player, and Louisville will just try to regroup, I guess, as best they can.
Kentucky and what Stoops runs, they have had running backs that are good and put up big numbers, and so there's something there besides obviously the option at Georgia. Let's go to I got something that's not something I sent to you, Garrett. Max Olster just put this up. So far, 497 scholarship players are in the portal. That's up 47% for this time a year ago. 25% of those names, or at least numbers, are repeat transfers. 48% are leaving what are the now Power 4 schools after yesterday's ruling, Big Ten, SEC, ACC, and Big 12. And the most transfers, we mentioned this, also the position people need, the defensive line, and then also 94, one less at defensive back. So the numbers are up nearly 50% from a year ago after somewhat of a slow start. Not a lot of huge names. We've discussed that. That's mainly in December. But at least there are the numbers up until, and it closes, what is it, April 30th, supposedly, although it doesn't seem like it ever closes, is the end of the transfer portal window.
Yeah, I mean, I guess every year this goes on, there's going to be more and more transfers that continue to boost up those numbers, especially when there's no rules in place to prevent them from transferring more than once. So, yeah, those repeat transfers obviously was up. Just in general, they're up, I think. It's such an open marketplace, and you're not really bound by anything. So if you get the feeling that, you need to change the scenery, or you get that DM or that phone call that somebody's got some money they're willing to offer you, it's easier than ever before, and overdue for players to have that movement. So, yeah, I don't think it's all that surprising that there's a ton of movement. I don't know how much of it grades out as healthy in the long run for the players involved, but I definitely think many will be financially set better than they ever would have been in the old system. Is that going to be the case for everybody? No, but it's provided a type of freedom that was long overdue, and yet it has brought an element of just complete uncertainty with who's on your roster at any given time, almost, throughout the landscape. So it's wild and interesting to keep up with, but as you said, it's not been the nuclear explosion that some were teasing for this spring period by any stretch. It's not even been close to kind of what I was anticipating. Granted, those were recruiting services, so they're kind of pumping up the product of trying to sell that. But at the same time, I was expecting a bit more in terms of splashes. So there's been something here and there, like the Penny Boone situation. But as you mentioned, December with the quarterbacks and some of the other top position players was really the big, I think, explosion as far as this cycle of the portal goes.
Well, the quarterbacks, I think Brendan Sullivan, Northwestern's the latest, but again, a second level. With all due respect to him, he played a little bit at Northwestern, but none of the name. Rashada is a name that's gotten a lot of attention, obviously, with a big name from Arizona State. There was a note today on, Paul, you sent this to me and sent it to all of us. The Federal Trade Commission, this is business, and all of you that are involved in some sort of business, the Federal Trade Commission issued a final ruling making it illegal for bosses to make workers sign non-competes in any scenario, voiding nearly all existing non-competes. I've had to be a part of a couple of different non-competes. A lot of people have been asked to be a part of non-competes. That now is off the table.
Well, it's yeah. Look, and there might be people in the chat who are like, oh, no, this is terrible news. This is great news. It's great news for people in our business because non-competes have been thrown around in our business ridiculously forever.
What about investment firms and attorneys?
Oh, investment firms, non-competes are bad everywhere. There's people who make very low salaries that are stuck in non-competes. There are people who, especially in our business in news, all right, they don't renew your contract at a station in Tupelo, Mississippi, which is a really small market. But you can go get a job in say, at another company in Birmingham, Alabama, which is a bigger market. Well, it's another company, and you have a 6-month non-compete. So they're telling you that you can't work for 6 months, and they didn't want you in the first place? That's insane. This is awesome news. Awesome. It's going to get fought, but they're ultimately probably going to lose. This is really great news.
I think in the media business, as you mentioned, it is something that has always been used by most anyone that I've ever worked for or anyone that I know that has been a part of the media business. That doesn't mean everybody. Texas has been pretty good about not enforcing or not allowing or enforcing the non-competes, but this is countrywide, coast to coast, the non-compete now from the FTC.
I can't speak to other industries. I think it's great news. I think it's long overdue, and I think welcome news, as you said, for people like us in the sports media business or media business in general that has been abused by corporations for a long time now, and it's really screwed with people's livelihoods in some cases. And I get you sign a contract, but I just never believed in this as a law or as a rule, and I'm glad to see it go. I think that's great, and that will open up a world of possibilities for people who otherwise are just having to sit at home because of the previous way that things were. So this is progress in my mind. I think it's, like I said, very much long overdue.
And look, I was curious about retired stockbroker and Kim Coulter.
They both have good things. Yeah. I signed a few through the years with Wall Street firms, and none of them stuck or ever enforced. Your business may be different. Oh, it's very different. It's one of the things even in Texas where they don't like to enforce non-competes. The companies here will fight them because they don't want you to work for the competitors. And Kim Coulter says, I've beaten several non-competes to hire people away to my company. If you have a solid legal team, they're not hard to beat, and that's true. But the thing is now it's for people like retired stockbroker and Kim. You don't have to pay for a lawyer to beat a non-compete.
That's the thing. If you're some lowly radio DJ that they just want to screw with, you don't have the lawyer money to go and fight the company, and so you just have to kind of swallow it. I mean, I know people that have had to do that, had to swallow and just deal with it for an entire year before they're allowed to go do what they would always done.
Yeah, so if you were in, again, if you're in Waco and you're a radio DJ and you want to go work for the other company, likely that company's not going to pay for a lawyer to fight your non-compete.
Or they want there are times when they won't even talk with you.
But yeah,
as soon as you tell them there's a non-compete, they're out.
Well, that's it, yeah.
But that now is something that today came down. It really affects more than sports, but it does affect our business, or has. And there you are with that. So Kim Coulter and also Chris, retired stockbroker, also mentioning from their end of, and as Kim said, lawyers aren't cheap, no question. Yeah. Mike Bean, non-competes are very tenuous. And let's see. There's a couple of others about moving, but not involving the Saxman. All from beauticians to doctors are happy. Yeah, I would think the medical business has to be that way, too.
You'd be surprised by the businesses that do have non-competes. You'd be like, we have a non-compete? Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot of different industries that have dealt with this.
Liver transplants at another hospital? What are you talking about?
Or paint nails or, whatever. Yeah, I think it's great news overall. I'm sure there's some segment, some corner that I'm not aware of that I just don't live in that this is maybe not great news, but based on all my experience, I think a lot of people are happy with that.
Carl Reed works for 247 and CBS Sports, a former coach, and he's just got a really cool perspective, in my opinion, on the way things are the good and the bad when it comes to the transfer portal, kind of just like sitting down and saying, well, this is what you've done. You should have expected this. Sometimes I've read a couple of notes from him. He knows Dion pretty well, so it'll be interesting to hear from him, too. We'll have him on Zoom. I've followed him for quite some time, and I finally just reached out to his publicist and said, hey, we'd like to get Carl Reed on, especially Junior on, especially with where we are when it comes to the cycle in the spring, following most of the spring practices and football games, and get his thoughts about what he would expect or what he would like to see when it comes to college athletics. Former Midway High School, played here in Waco. KT Leviston, Kansas State offensive lineman at 4. Craig's Off the Radar is back. John McClain Hall of Fame columnist and Paul and his top 5 are also a part of today's show. This is 365 Sports. Stonewood Dental, Robinson, Texas. Dr. Steve Childress is my doctor, who finally sat me down back around the time of COVID and said, David, you're going to keep coming back to me more often than you want. And, man, we like you, but you're going to keep coming back to me a lot more often than you want, and I'm going to have to keep doing things that aren't comfortable. Root canals, injections in your jaw to take out a tooth, and just bad things that have happened inside of your dental work because I had a terrible, terrible habit of wanting to always have lozenges in my mouth as someone who wanted to kind of soothe my throat, and I just kind of liked the taste. I mean, sugar. And that sugar started eating away at some of my dental work, and Dr. Childress slowly but surely was able to take care of it. And slowly but surely, though, sometimes you have so much damage, there's nothing you can do about it, and then you have major surgery. So he has been my dentist. He has done a great job. Dr. Steve Childress has a group of other dentists inside of his building, Stonewood Dental in Robinson, techs and hygienists, a great staff, and they are there for you to make sure that your dental work doesn't get to the point where mine did, and then if it does, they can still help you out with a game plan from start to finish. Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, my dentist in Robinson, Texas.
Cars priced right, both day and night. Average your car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. Average your car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. Average your car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. Average your car in Waco, Texas.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts, plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott and White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
We're efforting Carl Reed Jr. on college football today, the rules and what we see. But let's get to this story, which was kind of teased that this was going to happen. At least they're going to look at it. This is for a lot of coaches who are on the bounce back, who have been head coaches or even high school coaches who wanted to move up into college football, and it's the analyst job. But the analyst job is not where you are allowed to recruit, and you're not allowed to have on or like in practice coaching. Today, Ross Dellinger with this story. NCAA proposal to permit all staff to give coaching, instruction, practice, and games. In a memo to the NCAA, outside consultants coaching, satellite offices, recruiting-only coaches. The proposal is on pace to be voted on in May. Here is what, Paul, they can do, Craig, they can do. In football, question, may any institutional staff member provide technical and tactical instruction, signal plays, call plays, conduct drills to a student athlete? The answer is yes. What has that answer been before?
No.
No. So that's something that's up for proposal. And that, again, would allow coaches, and Gary Patterson's the local example, and he was at Texas after his time for a long time, his success for the longest of time until the end it kind of ran into a little bit of proverbial brick wall when he was the head coach at TCU.
I'm sure that like there's a lot of practical uses where this would be good. I'm sure you'd love to have Gary Patterson be able to get in and coach players, as opposed to just taking notes and then going to Dave Aranda and going, here's my notes, I'll see you tomorrow, kind of a thing. But I do think that there's a nice little, firewall if you're like, oh, listen, I appreciate your input, but you can't talk. So it keeps the voices a little bit low. But look, if they're doing a lot of this stuff, it's one of those things where a lot of it is probably happening anyway. So, and it's tough to, do something for so long and coach and then be out there watching and see something go wrong and then just have to sit there silently and not go coach. So it's probably one of those things that just happens, and then they're like, well, it probably happens so much that it's not worth it. And also with recruiting, this all goes back around to that. Like, how much can you use a guy to recruit at any advantage you can get? So I wouldn't be surprised if this is what's really driving that ship.
Well, I mean, there's been demand for expanded staffs and demand for it. I mean, you see how they get one little opening and it turns into 20 former head coaches serving as analysts in Tuscaloosa, or and I'm obviously a little bit of hyperbole there, but
no. That's where a lot of it went from 1 to 10 or 20, and then everyone else tried to follow suit.
Yeah, so I think it's welcome news for those who want to see an expansion of that role, and I don't know how much of a game changer it is, but obviously if you suddenly have Gary Patterson over across the street able to coach defense hands-on and actually get out there and do what a normal coach would be doing, that's certainly better than him just sitting to the side, not allowed to talk to many of the players during the course of the practice, besides just, kind of small talk or maybe a thing here and there. He's got to be hands-off and just basically sit back and take notes. Now, the only thing with that is it's great the rules change, but then also wouldn't his contract change? Isn't he suddenly going to be probably getting paid a lot more money to do the hands-on, on-the-field instruction as opposed to the analyst off-field, off-hands instruction? So, I don't know what appetite staffs will have for how many of these analyst jobs might get a little more pricey and expensive because the roles expand, but I do think it's welcome news for those who have had those roles and for those coaches who want to have as many great analysts as possible to help, build their team. That's something that's certainly going to, I think, be seen at most of the top schools where these trends start and kind of build up and turn into what they turn into, like Alabama, as we were talking about. But, yeah, I think it's welcome news and something that's been talked about for quite a while now.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what Bob Shipley, when he was the head coach at Belton, the Shipley brothers' father, but I thought that I thought it was like $50,000 to $75,000. He was going to retire. He had already set himself up to be successful with his retirement. But, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what that salary would be. How much? It would be a question for Mac Rhodes when we have him on sometime, whenever that is in May.
You're basically an assistant coach.
Yeah, no.
So,
yeah, you are now. In some ways, because you still can't do this. Question. In football, may any institutional staff member contact or evaluate prospective student athletes off campus? In other words, there were 9 coaches on staff that could go off campus and recruit. Then there were 10. That was added. And you couldn't do that as an analyst, and you still can't do that. You could still coach now. You can get your hands in it, but you cannot recruit or conduct any kind of visits with any prospective student athletes.
Sounds like a dream gig for
Yeah,
guys who actually want to coach.
Positive, yeah.
I know there's recruiters out there. There's some guys who are more recruiter than they are coach, and vice versa. But I would think for those who don't really care about recruiting, or it gives them a headache like it does a lot of folks, especially nowadays, that'd be great news. Oh, I'm just coaching and just dealing with the team on a day-to-day basis? Sign me up. I don't have to go and worry about flips and all that kind of jazz. Just worry about who's here on campus. Yeah, I think that'd be mighty enticing for a number of people.
Kim Coulter, Craig nailed it, but it didn't go far enough. This is just another advantage for the SEC Big Ten.
Of course. Yeah.
Schools will have over the Big 12, ACC, and others as it comes back to the P2 having twice the money of the Big 12 schools and, of course, others in the ACC.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I didn't go far enough, and exactly right. That'll get exploited just like the analyst, iteration before that to what we were talking about with Alabama, and that will be every single thing imaginable that they can exploit and build up and get in more and more and more advantages. That's going to be – I mean, that's the history of college sports, college football in many cases anyways. I mean, there's always been bending of the rules and exploiting and things like that, but it's just so much more glaring now because of the big gap that we all talk about. But certainly when you have an extra $40 million to play around with on a year-to-year basis, you're going to go have Gary Patterson as your defensive analyst, coordinator, special assistant to the head coach, who's actually able to work at practices, in addition to your other defensive coordinator, in addition to your former NFL coach who's the assistant to the linebackers coach, and so on and so forth. So, yeah, you're absolutely right that's just going to create more situations like that and not really a whole layer on the piece of bread on the toast. It's not going to be spread evenly by any means.
Extra peanut butter and jelly.
And look, they've got this extra money, and they're going to spend it like a meth head who won the lottery. So it's going to be nuts. It's not like you're going to take the money and be like, well, we got $40 extra million. Let's put that in a nice IRA.
Right.
Let's put that
They
in
might
a nice,
need to do that to pay back the NCAA lawsuit at some point.
Maybe so. But they're going to spend the money, and they're going to get every advantage that they can possibly get. So, yeah, these coaches are going to coach. These coaches are going to recruit. One of the things that put the rule in the cap of staff sizes was Nick Saban essentially had like a Malaysian phone bank of people recruiting, all the time, where they were just, okay, hey, let's call, because there's no limit. And then the other schools are like, well, we can't do that.
Speaking of which, the question, may an institution employ an individual who will be involved with recruiting or evaluating prospective student athletes if the individual does not reside in the institution's general locale? Answer, no. Such an individual would be considered an athletics talent scout. Per NCAA bylaw, the number, an institution may not employ an individual who will be involved with recruiting or evaluating prospective student athletes if the individual does not reside in the general locale.
Well,
so in other words, in Waco, you can't live like, for example, in Tampa and be working for Baylor when it comes to being a part of the staff that is contacting student athletes.
They'll figure that out soon enough, too,
I think that's happening, too, yeah.
But that's not really a hard thing to do. all they have to do, and maybe this was going to be like how it is where, somebody has a P.O. box or, just rent them an apartment here in the place and then be like, listen, and then they rent them an apartment in Tampa and be like, you're our Florida guy, but, you got to spend at least this much time here in Waco. And so during the recruiting dead period, here it's easy. I've already found a way for you to break this rule. During the recruiting dead periods, of which there are several, you come back here and we do paperwork and we figure out where you're going to go next. And then during the recruiting open periods, you go live in Miami, where that's where you really
There's no talent in Miami, Paul. There's all the talent.
So, I've already look. I'm sorry for the next NCAA rule I just broke, but I just figured out how to break it pretty damn fast.
I think they've already known that.
Yeah.
But it's a great idea.
Yeah.
All right, so there we are with that. No Carl Reed. Garrett, not sure exactly what's happened with that. All right. We'll figure that out. Now, one of the things that the NCAA is dealing with is this lawsuit. One of the things that the teams have to worry about is at some point they're going to have to pay Mother Nature in so many ways. And yesterday when we discussed this with Ross Dellinger and among others, it's not going to be Boise State. It's not going to be Troy. And it's not going to be South Dakota State. Nor should it, even though they're a part of the NCAA. How many schools do you think, when there's a $14 million, and I'm using that number, a $14 million IRS payment to whoever, Jeffrey Kessler in this overall lawsuit, how many of the schools among, let's say, 65 or 70 would not blink?
About 20.
Yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah. I mean, it's the same answer to every single. Yeah. How many would be able to afford this? Same 20 schools. How many would qualify for this? The same 20 schools. How many are in the best shape for the same 20 schools? I mean, let's go Texas, Oklahoma,
Georgia, Alabama.
It's the same
LSU,
ones.
Ohio State.
It's the same ones. So all those schools, Michigan, they'd all be fine. But I mean, I think any team in the Big Ten and the SEC is going to be just fine because you're about to start making tens of millions of dollars a year more than anybody else. So, you wouldn't think of Vanderbilt or, Purdue necessarily, but they're going to be way better off than Oklahoma State or Texas Tech or whoever. So, yeah, I mean, I think all those schools will be fine. Doesn't mean they won't feel it. You're going to feel it. Billionaires still feel it when they have to, write a $10 million check, I'm sure. It's a drop in the bucket for them, but it's still
all relative.
It's still $10 million that they, you like money. Mm-hmm. You don't want to get, doesn't matter if you have $1 billion, losing 10 millions. Hey, that's $10 million I don't have that I otherwise would have had. So, yeah, I think that if you're in that upper tier, which, is called many different things at this point, then you'll be okay. I think if you're somebody who's super reliant on every single dime that rolls in from your TV contracts, like it sounds as though everybody else is, yeah, that's going to be really, really tough. And I don't know, in terms of how you approach donors or what you do about that, but that's obviously what everybody's trying to sort through right now.
All right, if there are the 65 or 70 schools that ended up being a part of this lawsuit, should anyone pay more than any other school? Should Purdue pay the same amount as Michigan? Should Michigan pay the same amount as Georgia? Should Georgia pay the same amount as, let's say, Iowa State?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How far
it's the
back?
Same thing they're all arguing.
How far back does the back pay go?
I guess that'll be determined, but of who's in the class action.
Would it go back to Georgia, Oklahoma, 1984? Would it go back to when O'Bannon won his case, or would it go back to when Alston case that Jeffrey Kessler won when that happened?
I would say that
which
there's
was
going to be
9 years ago.
There's going to be a period where they say, here's where the media numbers got to the point of where they should have been sharing. Because the argument before the NCAA had wasn't just they're getting the education, the scholarship is, well, there's no money for that. We can't pay every player. Like, that was their argument. And they had a legitimate argument because the coach, was making, $95K. Like, all right, well, that's, he's the coach. He's making a good living, but, he doesn't have a ski chalet in the Alps. But now that you've got coaches making $12 million and that school's making all this millions of dollars, that's probably the dividing line of when the back pay will start.
So we're talking about the Kessler case?
Yeah.
It says in the article, April 1st, 2019.
Right before NIL started, right?
Yeah, that's very clearly in there. The athletes who participated on teams on or after April 1st, 2019 at schools that now provide such benefits are seeking rewards they feel qualify within the case's 4-year statute of limitations. So that is your timeline.
Why would it be after that? Because that's when they started getting paid, around 2020, 21. Why would it not be before that? That's
when they won the case.
The Alston case was 9 years ago. Yeah. This case, of course, is still current, so we don't know.
Well, I mean, there's probably some media deal on there that's attached to it or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know the exact answer to that. It's a better question for those legalese people out there that we have on. But, yeah, I mean, that's the clarity that I saw.
Also, why not before would be this is when you can probably get that money from. If you start going before, when does before stop, like you said?
No, that's what
does
I'm
it
saying,
go back to Georgia, Oklahoma? No. Because if you say Georgia goes to Oklahoma, you want us to pay 40 years of back pay? No. Well, but 5 years is kind of doable.
Okay. All right. Because players started getting paid around 2020, 21 when the NIL began.
Well, look, when they sued the cigarette companies, were you suing for everybody who died ever or just enough people to make them hurt? Like, you can't do that.
I don't know that, but that was billions and billions of that. Wasn't Baylor University's some attorneys?
Yeah, John Eddie Williams. Yeah, was one of them. But yeah, so you can't. You've got to make it winnable. Like where you can actually see results from. If you start adding, especially if you start adding way more people to the class action, then it's hard to even get out of that.
You go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there's the Kessler case that we're talking about. There's also the House case, and that goes back to 2016. So I don't know. I'm definitely not the legal guy on this show. And I mean, none of us really are, but we have plenty of people who can probably help iron this out that we talk to. But yeah, it all gets very confusing to me. I'm not. I think it's interesting to a certain point, but I don't know the ins and outs of like the exact decision, why it was made and all of that, but I'm open to some clarity there. But yeah, I mean, there's two different time periods that are pointed to there. I don't know why it doesn't go back to 1974 or wherever else. I don't know how you could even begin to even try to deal with that many years ago.
If Ahmad Dixon all of a sudden gets a check in the mail from the NCAA or whatever for $62,000, I mean, he's not waiting for that. I mean, I'm just using, that was a decade ago. Just curious about how far back it should go. But again, legally, they know exactly what would happen, and all the athletes underneath that umbrella that might receive some sort of a compensation for the lawsuit settled, and or if it goes to a jury trial. 347, back with more 365 Sports. Samantha Duvall, TexasBeefHouse.com. I know business is rolling along. The online auction is not that far away. It's now less than a month away, April 25th, online and also in person. Your thoughts about what you got there?
Our last one that we had in January was so much fun. We had a lot of people come out. Everybody's invited to come out. We'll have dinner at 5. This time we are going to have brisket to eat, and the auction will start at 6:15. You'll be able to bid either in person or you can bid online. You can find all of the information you need at TexasBeefHouse.com. But it's just a fun family event. Bring the family out. We have families, so our 4 kids are there. Also, the other thing that's obviously still going on, you can always use the SICM10 code online and get 10% off your order of $100 or more.
Deliveries Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday each week from TexasBeefHouse.com. And if you do get something online, you could have it delivered to you. Is that correct, Samantha?
You can order 24/7 online. We ship through UPS. We ship Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We've got packages online that qualify you for free shipping in Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, or Louisiana. And also, the other thing that we offer on our auction items, if you buy any of our bundles or any of our lots on auction, you're going to get free shipping also to the lower 48 states.
TexasBeefHouse.com, just outside of Tyler and White House, the Duvall family and the ranch, farm-raised Wagyu beef at TexasBeefHouse.com.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears!
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
This is 365 Sports. Are you a Sick'em 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at sick'em365.com.
Kansas State offensive lineman KT Katori Leviston will join us as the NFL draft is a couple of days away. And where and what is he hearing about what he might see happen this weekend? Perhaps, I guess, sometime on Saturday. I think KT picked up a couple of degrees during his time at Kansas State, a hell of a high school lineman, and now available and waiting for the draft this weekend.
So this is from Dennis Dodd, our friend. Derek Dooley, former Tennessee coach, former Louisiana Tech coach, former Cowboys wide receivers coach, as a matter of fact, is pitching a Group of 5 playoff that would be financially backed by private equity, according to sources at CBS Sports. The concept would address, if not be motivated by, disappointment felt by the Group of 5 conferences over revenue distribution shares under the new college football playoff media rights agreement. The average program in those conferences will receive $1.8 million a year, up from 1.5. So, we'll see. I don't know if this is going to work out, but there are, he's trying to start something. I know this is another idea out there. I'm not sure how much he can sell this if you're private equity to this is going to be a thing that makes you money, but this sounds to me like they're trying to create the college football version of the XFL.
It sounds to me like they're trying to play for something because they otherwise don't have a chance to. I mean, that sounds more of the thing to me. XFL, I guess, I see the kind of minor league comparisons drawn there, but I think if you're a G5 team, what are you playing for?
Yeah. Nothing. I mean,
you don't have a postseason tournament to go crown a champion like the lower levels do. You have basically little to no access to the actual playoff. Even in the expanded playoff, you have the same amount of access, but you're getting jumped by, 5 more schools. So you're not even guaranteed to ever even have a high seed, even if one of your teams is great. They'd always be like, yeah, I know you're undefeated, Tulane, but Mississippi State lost 2 games, and one was to Bama, and one was to, and like that whole thing that typically happens. So, on the surface, this sounds like an idea to give them something to play for, give them access to a championship of some sort, and not just being background noise in some cases for the transfer portal and, whatever the big schools want to eventually do. So if there's going to be separation, let's see separation, and maybe it's time for the Group of 5, as much as they want to, like every other school, be in the top tier, be involved in the top tier. Maybe it's time to call a spade and say, like, this life isn't for you anymore. You're not competing with Tennessee. You're not playing for a national title. We go to 32-team playoff. 2 of you are making this thing. You know what I mean? Like, let's be serious about it. So, and then what are the odds you have enough equipment and gas in the tank to even win more than possibly a game? So I think that's where this is coming from. I don't know about all of the financial backing, how they work. I don't know about the interest level, quite honestly. I mean, I know it's kind of the college football diehard thing to do is when the FCS playoffs roll around, all of a sudden we're talking about South Dakota State, and there are some very interesting things there. I don't know what they do as far as ratings go. I don't know, like, first-round games, how interested people are in those, and I don't know how much of a difference there might be or an audience there might be for a group of 5 playoff. I think there'd be some audience for it, but same way there's MACtion fans, and there's, obviously American fans, and the various conferences out there have their own fan bases, but could that turn into an actual event all by itself? I don't know, but I think it's worth kicking the tires on some different ideas right now because what choice do you have?
This is not to compare the level of the G League to the NBA. Paul, who won the G League last year?
No idea.
Did you watch any?
No.
Yeah, and that's not even
all right. Garrett, did you watch the FCS championship? I watched North Dakota State every year because I saw how dominant they were, and now it's South Dakota State. So I did see some of those.
I didn't watch. I watched like one of the first playoff games, but I didn't watch the championship.
When Mary Hardin Baylor was running the table with Pete Fredenberg, always knocking on the championship door. You had Whitewater, you had obviously Mount Union, and there were 1 or 2 others. I watched it when Mary Hardin Baylor was involved, or when Mount Union ran off like 5 or 6 in a row, because I like to see dynasties. But that's about it. And that's not saying that I won't watch James Madison against Boise State if there's going to be what would be called a group of 5 championship. I don't know.
Well, I mean, the TV audience matters because that's where the money's coming from. Yeah. So if there's money behind this proposal and there's this private equity money that's willing to back this thing and they can make more than less than $2 million that they make right now, then I could see where that would be appetizing because you have a crack at an actual championship and you'd be making more money. Now, is this money real or is this just floating it out there and seeing how people react to it? Or is Derek Dooley some tip of the spear who's going to guide this thing into a whole new era? I don't know. I mean, there's some blanks that would need to be filled in here. And there's a lot of question marks, like a lot of these stories nowadays when we talk about the postseason, it's like, oh, that sounds good. And then you look deeper into it and there's like 100 questions that are unanswered or that are like, now this is never likely to pass. But in the case that it did, this play, and so I don't know if it's one of those situations.
Mike Oresco was against this.
But
Mike Oresco always said it would only separate us further, which is happening anyway.
But he's also on the way out the door. Yeah. So, again, he's not going to have a say in it. But, look, look, he's probably right of, like, doing that will separate them further. But also, every chance that the big boys get to try to separate further, they figure out a way to. So they can either keep, like, I guess Derek Dooley's proposal would be you can either keep trying to claw away at something that every time they get an opening, they're going to take more away from you, or you can just tell them, like, look, you don't want us involved in this? Fine, we're not.
But at least they have one foot in the door, which they had basically almost none when it was 4, and there was always the argument against it. So my question is, when you start working out in August, you want to have a chance to compete for a championship, but does it have to be the ultimate one to make it worth the scratch?
Yeah, I don't know. And look, this is also seems like...
Does it need to be? I mean, Craig, do you think if they're going to work out in August that those schools, and by the way, could include teams out of the ACC and Big 12 at some point, is it worth doing what you do in August? Because it's worth for Mount Union and Whitewater and UMHB, although they're not as good as they were.
I mean, is that the ultimate prize in your league that you can win?
That's in that level.
Then, it's worth it because what else are you playing for?
Yeah, I mean it's Duncanville and DeSoto compete for 6A, but there's also Crawford and Mart compete for 2A.
Mart High School shouldn't compete because it's not the 6A prize.
All right, no.
You're not built for 6A. You don't have the number of kids. You don't have the investment. You don't have the transfers that magically get new jobs in your town when the 5-star receiver's grown to be a junior in high school. They don't have all those benefits. They lose those guys, actually, to schools that I won't even name. But, I think if that's what the prize became, but again, there's a lot of questions here. Patrick Crakes, who we've had on, and by the way, going back to the conversation about the lawsuit, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not legal guy. I don't follow these cases super closely beyond just kind of the general things, but I did look into it so that we weren't just rambling about, why does this exist? There's a statute of limitations, apparently, is why the time frame is what it is and why you're not seeing guys from 1962 saying, where's my back pay? So that's the part of the problem there, or that's not the problem, but that's part of why that window is what it is. Although I'm sure we can get smarter people to elaborate further, like Patrick Crakes, who's quoted in this article that you're referring to, and says, I heard about ideas like that. It certainly has to be for less money than the Power 5. If somebody comes to me and asks me to invest in this, how do I get my money back? How do I make more than I can in AAA corporate bonds at 9% today, or I can invest in Rice Plain, Texas State? So that's one of those big old blanks in this story where the headline sounds good and the concept sounds interesting, but you read further into it, and it's like there's no money backing that's established. Even if there is, it's like, what kind of money are we talking about? Is it even more than what they're getting right now? Just basically being the bottom rung of the ladder?
What if they do this tournament, and we got to get to KT in the next break. What if they do this and then the FBS or the college football playoff guys go, here goes, okay, you're not getting the 1.8 we're going to give you.
Well, I think this is probably why they're trying to replace that money, because they think they'll make more. So if they're going to get 1.8, but they're all going to get 2.5, then it's a win for them.
How can they? I can't imagine
they
would all get 2.5, but when they only get 1.8.
But that's the selling point right now. That's probably
it's an option.
Derek Dooley's not going to them and saying, like, listen, you're not going to get the 1.8, but we promise you're going to get 1.4. Well, then why would they take less money and just not stay there? He's going to have to sell it as you're going to get a championship and you're going to make more money.
But what we discussed, and I thought this is something we all were pretty much on the same page, is that when we were looking at the college football playoff expansion, one of the things that everybody wanted, whether you're an FBS or a group of 5, autonomy 4 conference or not, was a chance that when you start in August, you have a chance to be in the college football playoff. Even if it's a very slim one, you have a chance.
Yeah, I mean, there's also other blanks in this, like how do you take a bunch of different TV media rights and say, all right, here's your playoff? I mean, who's interested in that? How are all the networks going to agree? Like, yeah, we've got Conference USA and you've got so-and-so, but we'll just – I mean, that's one of those other, like, that's a pretty big hurdle in moving this thing down the line, but it's at least an interesting thing to debate. And to your question of, I mean – everybody wants access, like you said, but I don't really think it changes all that much. I mean, going in that Jacksonville State doesn't have a real shot to win a national championship.
Right.
You play like it, you work like it, but is it realistic? No. So is it all that different to begin with? No, not really. But if the difference in you doing what's best for your school is just simply this faint idea that you have a chance, then yeah, I guess teams would prefer to have that. But
UTSA is not paying Jeff Traylor that kind of money and also building new things because they want to play in what is an alternate championship tournament.
If it's the only thing they can win a championship in, though, they might. I mean, yes.
Not what they're doing, not with the money they're spending now. They're spending money now to try to be a team that can just be right on the fringe of the Power 5 schools, but still have a chance if you're good enough.
I know, but you bring that up sometimes about all this money that these people are spending, and
well, aren't they?
They are, but that doesn't mean that
they're owed anything.
Yeah,
they don't mean they're owed anything.
No. I'm not saying that Baylor's owed anything because they just built a brand new pavilion or McLean Stadium's $300-some million. I'm not. Or Kansas is tearing theirs down to redo it. What I'm saying is, those schools are not doing that to win an alternate second-level football championship.
But they're also not doing it just to simply win a championship. They're doing it because it makes money. It makes money for all the facilities and all the other things.
They're spending money, and it's going to make money. It's going to keep them. It's going to help them tread water.
All right. So what I think you're like, Craig and I are. I'm going to combine the points here. So what I said was the only way that Derek Dooley sells this at all is you get to win a championship that they're not going to let you win at the other level, and we're going to make you more money. So that's the only way that, to what you are saying, if they're spending all this money to be competitive, that's the only way it's going to be attractive to them, because then that money's going to come back. But right now, they're essentially throwing money into the void. So, because they're not going to win a championship. They're not going to.
Kansas is spending money to renovate the stadium because they're a Power 5 school or Power 4 school.
We were talking about Kansas. We're about UTSA.
Okay. Well, no, I brought up Kansas a minute ago, too.
But Kansas is in this. Kansas is not part of the group of 5. Kansas is part of the Power 4. So the group of 5, Kansas is not germane to the argument. UTSA is. So if you tell UTSA that you can win a championship that the powers that be don't ever want you to have, and if
That won't
let you, that will find every way that they can not to let you have it. And you're going to make, because the only way Derek Dooley sells this is they're going to make equal or more money, and you actually get to hoist the trophy. Then that's where this can be an actual starter, not a non-starter. But if any one of those details is not met, then it's a non-starter.
Yeah, I think there's just a lot of questions to answer about this proposal. Again, it's like the playoff thing that was thrown out the other day, and we chewed on that for, 24 hours, and then we moved on when we realized how unrealistic it was. Like right now, with all of the TV contracts and the payouts and the uncertainty, I mean, this one's just, it's good for about probably 24 hours, and then we'll move along from it. I understand what you're saying about competing for a championship, but, that's a choice that you make. So just because you spend money doesn't mean you're entitled to anything. And I get what you're saying. Well, UTA is not spending this money to not get a crack at a national championship. Well, maybe UTSA is just not going to spend that money anymore then.
Well, that's what I was getting
right.
at.
And who cares? I mean, UTSA fans will care, and there will be conference fans that care, and there will be exterior fans who just love watching Jeff Traylor that will care. But does Alabama care if UTSA stops spending
apparently not.
money?
Yeah, no.
Does Georgia care if whoever, Texas State suddenly decides we're not getting a fair share, we're not spending $2 more million a year? Okay, see you later. So yeah, I get what you mean. You wouldn't have the same amount of investment, but that's a you problem. That's not an everybody else problem. And as we've established, this is a very individualized sport, which was backed up by what we talked about yesterday when speaking about all these conferences, and it was Jared Mosley from UNT. He's talking about like we're acting like these are like teams or something like that when everybody's out for their own best interest. So if UTSA or Texas State spending money, it becomes an issue for them because they feel it's not being spent and getting what they want to ultimately obtain. Well, that's a them problem. And I don't necessarily feel that way, but I know that's how the greater landscape would feel about that.
KT Leviston, Kansas State offensive lineman. We'll get a guest on to discuss what we've been trying to kind of figure out. It's been kind of a back and forth. It's been interesting, though, because everybody has an opinion on it, including the schools that are in and the schools that want to be maybe more included. This is 365 Sports. Pioneer Steel and Pipe. Since 1943, they opened up their doors, and now they have this brand new facility. It's just over a year and a half old on Loop 340 and Highway 6 on the east side of I-35. Pipe, steel, and metal. Pipe, steel, and metal. What do you do with that? You build things. Real estate, commercial, more. They are incredible when it comes to understanding, knowing the right contractors to use so you don't get caught up in a malaise and a lot of delays when it comes to metal buildings. They have what you need for that. They have what you need to build homes, mansions, business buildings, commercial, and again, real estate. The PioneerBoys.com website with all of the history of what they've done, where a handshake does make a difference and means something. PioneerBoys.com.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a $4,000 rebate on the powerful and capable 2024 Ram 2500 Tradesman and Lone Star. Hurry in today and don't miss out on this incredible deal. Visit us now at Allen Samuels in Waco or 24/7 at AllenSamuelsDCJ.com.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
TFNB Your Bank for Life is the official local bank of Baylor Athletics. Find out why more Central Texas are making TFNB their bank for life. Sign up for our Edge checking and savings accounts to earn interest or cash back. With 5 convenient locations and an award-winning mobile app, banking has never been easier. TFNB, your bank for life. Member FDIC.
When your business depends on technology to stay on track, you need professional IT services you can trust. Carry On Solutions offers managed IT services, network professional consulting services, and cybersecurity. Carry On Solutions expert team handles M365 and Azure migrations, Active Directory assessments, security assessments and hardening, Exchange migrations, Windows Server upgrades, Veeam backup and recovery solutions, and more. In a world where technology is constantly evolving and security is an ever-ending concern, Carry On Solutions will keep your business running by minimizing risk, downtime, and giving you peace of mind. For more information, email sales@carryonsolutions.com or contact carryonsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
KT Leviston Katori, Kansas State offensive lineman, joins us. Someone whose name expected to be called at some point this weekend, the NFL draft starting on Thursday night. KT with Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, and he remembers us because we did his games at Midway High School. How you been, young man?
Man, I've been great. Just out here living life.
So what are the expectations, and what is the week of the draft like in your case?
It's a roller coaster of emotions, happy, anxious. It's a very exciting week. This is going to be a really exciting weekend. I'm going to be hopeful enough to see my name go across that board and just, enjoy the time with friends and family.
KT, you've been there at Kansas State. You guys were an excellent offensive line. You've got Cooper Beebe also in this draft. How do you think that's prepared you, being in this offense, playing for Chris Kleiman, Colin Klein, really being road graders and excellent run blockers has gotten you ready for the next level?
They did a really great job of preparing us for the next level. Connor Riley, the offensive line coach, that man, he pours his heart and soul into every player he brings in. He's going to push you hard. He's going to demand greatness out of you just because he knows everybody that he brings in can be great. And I feel like we've been able to show that over the past couple of years, how great the offensive line and not only how well we can elevate that offense too. I don't quote me on this, but I believe we had like a top 3 offense the past 3 years. And it's all credit to like that coaching staff being able to hold all the players accountable, the players being able to hold each other accountable, and just making that place a really special place.
What's it like to have Chris Kleiman there at the top of the leadership poll?
He's a phenomenal man. Great leader. He's a player's coach. He knows what to say in the right moments for everybody, and then he's also gonna pretty much put all the responsibilities and the holding each other accountable on the players. So he wants his team player led. He calls it not his team. He says our team because he wants the players to know they have great ownership in that team. And so, that's why, we've had great years under him, great success, because once we bought in and we knew that, okay, this is our team, we got to really take ownership, then he was just there to kind of do fine tuning, but he let us take the reins though.
KT, the Kansas State culture, which Bill Snyder built from what was as bad a situation in college football as ever, and did it twice. And it kind of seems like Coach Kleiman has continued that too. Can you try to describe the culture of being a K-State football player?
Yeah, so I played 1 year under Bill Snyder. He was a great coach, and he was partly the reason why I wanted to go there, because I wanted to play under a future Hall of Fame. Now he is a Hall of Fame, college Hall of Fame coach. And he was just the way that he took that program and turned it around, and how he just kind of pushed everybody to be their best is what I liked. And then Kleiman came in and he kept the same tradition, because when he was at NDSU, that's kind of, they had the same type kind of culture and the same work ethic there. And he just kind of brought it here, modified it a little bit his way. But I mean, it's still the same. Like, Nick, great, you go to K-State, you want to work hard, and your hard work's going to pay off at the end of the season.
What is it like blocking for some of the running backs that you have? Deuce Vaughn, DJ Giddens, they're different guys. But what's it been like, open the holes for them?
It's definitely fun, because I mean, they have a ton of trust in their O-line, and we have a ton of trust in them to make the right reads. I got to know all their strengths and weaknesses. They got to know all of our strengths and weaknesses, and that's just ultimately what will make an O-line great, and that's what will make a running back great. I mean, outside of that, both of them are phenomenal athletes, great dudes off the field. Deuce is more of a finesse type guy. He's going to give you a little shake and bake, and he just adds that flavor to his team, or to his skill level, to his bag. And DJ, he's a bigger back, so I mean, he can either shake you or he's going to run right through you. So I mean, whenever just seeing those guys like break free, get through our holes that we create and break free and like run somebody over or shake them, like, I mean, it just gets us fired up for the next play. And so we like to just keep running the ball at them and really wear down a defense just with our run game, and then we tear them up in the back end with our pass game. So I mean, it makes it a lot fun.
How has KT Leviston, the player, grown the most since Midway High School? How has KT Leviston, the person, grown the most since Midway High School?
I would say I've grown the most since like Midway. As a person, just kind of like maturity level. Like, obviously going into college, I was 18, still immature, but just maturing outside of football. I've graduated with my bachelor's, graduated with my master's. I mean, it's definitely been a fun ride, like and you kind of feel like you mature a little bit, but then having people around you say like, man, like since whenever I first met you to now, like you're just a completely like more mature person, like a grown man. And as a player, I mean, when I was on the field at Midway, I was still a pretty nasty player, like putting people in the dirt. But I would say, like, just getting more physically stronger has really elevated my game, getting faster, getting stronger. I like got a little bit bigger, so I mean, that's just kind of like elevated it. But I mean, I'm still the same person as when I was at Midway, when I strapped at that helmet and looked at the person across from me. I was letting them know, like, hey, you got a long day, buddy. I'm coming for you.
By the way, congrats on the Masters. Yeah, it's a huge deal. That's awesome.
You got 2 degrees, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
2 degrees. That's even better, no matter what happens with professional football. What was it about you? Jeff Hume used to tell me that for whatever reason, college coaches were enamored with your athleticism, despite how big you were. That they wanted to know if you could dunk a basketball. If you could play one of 2 sports, football or basketball, which would actually be the one you'd want to play?
I want to play basketball, but I was a lot better at football.
Yeah.
So, like, what I mean by that is, like, basketball, like, I obviously, like, I'm gifted to be a big player, but if you take me and put me on the court, like the dudes get a little bit bigger than me, a little taller in height. I mean, like body wise, I can hold my own, but like height wise, I mean, it's kind of hard. But I could dunk a basketball though. That was never a question.
So KT 6'5", 331 is what he measures at. And KT, I'll ask you this: when I used to interview you on the Midway Player Profiles, I'm 5'7". Obviously, you were physically intimidated by me.
Are you?
Yeah, 5'7". If I was lying, I'd say 5'8". Nobody claims 5'7" if they're not. Obviously, you were physically intimidated by me, but others you don't seem to be. So it was a surprise to me that you would even just say that.
No, yeah. I mean, honestly, like if like an NBA team was to call me and was like, "Hey, like we need you in the game," I'm gonna go out there. I'm gonna give them some buckets. Like I'll never back down from a challenge, but I might get like maybe 5 or 6 shots blocked.
Yeah, but you know what? You're going to body the hell out of them, too. They're going to feel you later on that day. What have NFL scouts said to you? You can play the offensive line. Tackle, of course, is where you've been entrenched for quite some time, and I'm sure if you needed to, move inside. What have they told you about where they see you playing?
Honestly, like a lot of teams see me playing, like moving inside, playing guard, but just because I have so much good tackle film, and then I was at the Shrine Bowl. I played only guard. I got a little bit of center in there, and I showed them I can play guard and center. That NFL teams have no doubt I'm able to play anywhere on the line, and that's a big thing. Like I've been really wanting to like let them know, like, hey, like wherever you need me at, I can hop in and I can fill in. There ain't gonna be no wrinkles. I got you, and I'm just ready to come in and just ready to get like, grind and put that work in and go win a Super Bowl champion anywhere, like wherever I go.
Do you feel like because of your athleticism and your footwork that left tackle, which is where most of the money comes when it comes to the offensive line, that is something where you could possibly play that position at the NFL level?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like I'm athletic enough. I got great footwork to where if I had to play left tackle, I'm going to be great at it at the next level. My arms are long, so you don't have to really worry about length. So, I mean, like, I feel like I'll be able to play left tackle. I can play right tackle. I can play left guard, right guard, center. So, I mean, like, even if they needed me to go in as like a ogre tight end, like an O-line tight end, I can get in there on like a power play and kick somebody out. Like I'm telling you, wherever you need me, I'm getting in and I'm gonna give you 100% effort and I'm gonna make sure this play is efficient.
How much have you played guard?
In 21 and in 2020, I played a couple games at guard. Over the past 2 years, I've just mainly played left tackle.
KT.
So I'd probably give you a rough estimate, like 7 games.
Okay. You entered college in 18. All hell broke loose in 2020, the COVID year, and then the extra year. I think you have been 6 years at K-State. There was, the red shirt and then the extra year. You experienced all of the changes in college football that have been played since the 1800s in a matter of like your 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th years. What was it like watching so much change from the extra year to NIL to the transfer portal? You never left Manhattan. How much of that was like sometimes just a blur?
It's been crazy. It's funny that you bring that up. So I was actually talking to my O-line coach here at K-State today about how college football has changed. And like, since I came into college, like there were a lot of strict rules. Like obviously you transfer, you lose a year. Athletes weren't getting paid, but to now is like, I compare it to almost it's the NFL before you get to the actual NFL. And it's wild because college football used to be more so just about, man, guys wanting to go to college, wanting to get an education, wanting to have a shot to like, get paid and say, man, I've made it. But now it's to the point and I'm not discrediting, like, I'm all for like athletes being paid just because obviously I have been a college athlete, but like now you see some guys, they're just getting money thrown at them and they're losing love of the game. They're just bouncing from college to college, trying to make as much money as they can. And then whenever it's their time to go to the league, guys are like, well, I've already made enough money. Like, I don't want to go to the league. And with the transfer portal rule, like, I mean, it's just insane how many times you see a guy, he may transfer like 4 times within his career in college, which is, it's wild to me knowing that when I got in, you could transfer 1 time and you'd still lose a year. And so it's been definitely a change. Obviously, like, from like coaching standpoint, just hearing like coaches, hearing their experience of it is, I mean, you kind of have to get on board with the change or you're going to get left behind. And so, and I definitely understand that. So, I mean, it's kind of weird looking back at it, but I'm also kind of glad, like, you know, I'm kind of hopping out of it, right? Like hopping out of college right now where I don't have to keep experiencing any more craziness.
You had the redshirt year, then you've played, I think, in 50 games, started 32, at one point 27 in a row. You were pretty healthy along the way. Do you feel like, and this is a question we had asked in our chat room, it's off to the side of our screen on TV, on YouTube, do you feel like because of how long you've played the game that actually you're more body ready, or is there any wear and tear that you're concerned about or the pros have brought up?
No, I'm pretty ready on the body. Just having that experience playing, you build that muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to be a great athlete in this profession. You have to like really explore your body, like get to know your body mentally and physically. And I feel like I've done a phenomenal job over the past years, like knowing my do's and don'ts on my body and the don'ts, like making those do's and like, you know, just knowing everything and having my body like completely ready for rookie mini camp, training camp, and all this stuff coming up forward. So I'm pretty ready, like, you know, just to get to work, man, after this weekend.
Well, so where are you going to be this? Let's say the Thursday night's the first and second round, then it gets into that second day. And then Saturday, I'm just being honest with most of the projections that most likely that's going to come where, KT, you might get the phone call from multiple teams, your agent, et cetera. What is your day going to be like? What are you going to do? Where are you going to be?
Actually, I'm going to be back down in Waco this weekend. Yes, I'm going to be back down there. We're going to be celebrating on Saturday. It's going to be a pretty fun time, you know, get to see the family, the friends. I haven't seen them in a while, so I'm pretty fired up.
Do you have a team? You're from Texas, and a lot of times you could be from Philadelphia, and the Cowboys, you know, people want to play for the Cowboys, the star. Do you care? Is there one you'd rather play for? Does it matter?
Honestly, it doesn't matter. I just want the opportunity to showcase them, to showcase my skills, to show them why I'm an asset to their team, and to end up winning the Super Bowl one of these years. And I always tell people, I'm like, I promise you, whatever team I'm on, like, I'm going to do everything in my power to try to get us there. So,
Coach Hume, by the way, said hi. I talked to him sometime last week when we were reaching out to get your number. He was good to you, and you were good to Midway, Hakeem White, Echeverria, all those guys. I'm still like, my memory's not the same, but I still can't get over some of the crazy stuff that happened when you guys played for the state championship against Cy Fairbanks with the muff punts or kicks and all that. Was that like something that took you a while to get over?
Yeah, I actually, every time, like, I always tell people about that story. Like, I can remember that game very vividly. Like, we had 3 muff kicks in the first quarter. We had a bad snap in the third quarter. We had the onside kick at the end of the game to recover and try to go down and tie the game up, onside it, and they picked it up and scooped and scored.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. And like, I can't remember who I was telling about it, but they were like, it's wild that like how you remember those really important games so vividly. I was like, yeah, that game I'll never forget.
KT, I've always had this theory about you guys that year because you rolled along so well, but you guys had wild moments, especially in some games where the break should not have gone your way and it did. And then it's almost like your currency with the football gods just ran out all at once.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was crazy that year we went 15-0 all the way to state. We had a couple close games that early on in the year. Majority of the time, like the games were pretty much out of reach.
Yep.
We had a couple close. I want to say Temple that year, it was Temple. Coppers Cove, we had a close one.
Coppers Cove was 49-45. Yeah.
Yeah.
You beat Cedar Park in the opening game was pretty tight.
Yeah, that one was. I can't remember who it was. It was the school out east that we played in the semi.
Longview.
That was, Longview. Yeah. Well, that one was what, 28-26?
Yeah, and they missed a field goal. Yep, missed a field goal twice. They missed it twice. Yeah. Yeah, that was in the pouring down rain at Eagle Stadium in Allen. That was a classic. It's one of the most classic games I think we've all been a part of. And then, of course, the Cy-Fair game. It seemed like you have done everything possible in your 6 years at K-State, growing up as a man, as a person, as a student, as a guy with a couple of degrees, and now a chance to play in the NFL. Always remembered that laugh in your personality. KT, we wish you the very best of luck in what happens this weekend.
Oh, yes, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Katori Leviston. That's what I always refer to him at. KT Leviston, the offensive tackle from Kansas State.
He was a road grader. He is a road grader. So he's a guy I think can help a lot of teams because he is, especially like coming from Kansas State, like when you come down to, okay, which guys in the 4th, 5th, 6th round am I going to give opportunities to that I think can come in and help me pretty quickly? Who can run block? Oh, K-State guys can run block.
Yep.
Wisconsin guys can run block. You know, those are the ones you can make sure that you're going to have a functional offensive lineman for the most part when they come from one of those schools. Now, how long the career is going to be, like all that's up to the aforementioned football gods and things that go. But when you know that you're, a 4-year starter at Kansas State and a team that runs the ball like they do. And to me, that's
Bill Snyder recruited you.
Yeah, that to me is one of those things that you're like, okay, if it comes down to this guy and then this guy who went to a school that maybe doesn't have that reputation, I may just go with Kansas State because I know that he can probably play a little bit quicker and more efficiently for me.
Yeah, Akeem White, Dazion Carroll, and also Katori Leviston, all were highly recruited players on the offensive line. Tanner Mordecai, of course, a quarterback, and much more. Trey Tomlinson, who had the strip peel it out of the hands of a South Lake Carroll player, about to go down 14-0, and he ran it back about 85 yards for a touchdown, and that turned that game around. What a great career. What a run that was until the game at AT&T Stadium. When we come back just around the corner, Craig Smoak. It has been a while since we've done Off the Radar because he was gone most every Tuesday and Thursday for Baylor football. That's around the corner. This is 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac. They are the people that you've been able to count on for over 20 years here in Central Texas with great deals on new vehicles, great deals on pre-owned vehicles, great customer service as well. You're looking to get a brand new SUV, they can accommodate you there. You're looking to get your oil change, they can hook you up with that as well. So they are a one-stop shop for whatever you're looking for your vehicle needs. And right now, if you need space for your entire crew, then it sounds like you need a Buick Enclave. A Buick Enclave offering quiet drive, loaded with space-age technology as well, though. And they deliver uncommon luxury in these Buick models at a common price. So come experience a Buick test drive today and check out the brand new Buick Enclaves. You can also save thousands on a new Buick Envision, just staying in that Buick SUV family. You can save thousands on the Buick Envision, save $6,000 to be particular on the Buick Enclave. Plus, like a lot of their other great deals, military and first responders, they also shave an additional $500 off for you as well. So you can contact the good folks over at Richard Carr and get more details on the Buick lineup of SUVs, the cars, trucks, and vehicles all over the lot. They got plenty of pre-owned cars, trucks, and SUVs to choose from as well. Over 90 highly inspected vehicles sitting on the lot with 100% credit approval, always at the top of their list of goals as they say yes when others say no. So if you're looking to buy new, go check out the Buick Envision. Save thousands now. The Buick Enclave. Save $6,000 now. Plus, military first responder get an additional $500 on top of that. Least you can do is go and take a test drive. If you're looking to go pre-owned, they've got plenty of options there for you as well. So for 25 years in Central Texas, they've been getting it done over at Richard Carr as your one-stop shop and as the place that has built a reputation as the people you can count on for your automotive needs. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
Thank you for calling your local Marco's Pizza. We're turning up the heat with our new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Fresh, house-made dough is topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers. At only $5.99, this limited-time product is a hot deal. Add it to your order while you can. A Marco's team member will be with you shortly.
Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it, and that offer on the Reaper Cheesy Bread is available right now at any of the 5 Marco's Pizza locations in Waco, including Belmead, China Spring, Robinson, Woodway, and Hewitt. Order online at marcos.com. Call for a pickup or delivery. Marco's Pizza is turning up the heat with their all-new Reaper Cheesy Bread with fresh, hot, house-made dough topped with a spicy cheese blend infused with jalapeno, habanero, and Carolina Reaper peppers, and only $5.99 and for a limited time only. Marco's Pizza, the fastest-growing pizza brand in America, 5 locations in Waco, and the new Reaper Cheesy Bread. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. Enjoying the show? Hit the like button and subscribe.
We just heard from Carl Reed from CBS Sports. He'll join us. We were expecting 3:30. He's going to come on with us a little after 5. Craig has been locked into Baylor football for the last, month or two? And back with what we have now with Off the Radar.
Yeah, so welcome into Off the Radar, Tuesdays and Thursdays at around 4:45, and just taking a look at a grab bag of stories that we, as I usually would say, otherwise might not get to. And we're going to start off with some NFL. There's a lot going on with the draft. A lot of other sports have a lot of very newsy things going on right now as well. But the NFL is kind of where a lot of the focus is at the moment with the draft here in just a couple of days, and that will take over, I think, a big swath of the sports reporting world when that commences here starting on Thursday. But you've seen all the mock drafts, you've seen all those various things, but there's a lot of other newsy things going on right now when it comes to the NFL, and perhaps as off the radar as it gets are the new uniforms that are getting rolled out here over the last few days, and there is one of them right there after much anticipation, some leaks by people who were, I guess, part of the shipping process that wanted to get famous on Twitter for like half a second anonymously. I don't really understand the method behind that, but there were some issues with the unveiling of the Houston Texans uniforms because of the fact that there were leaks. You had Cal McNair having to basically do damage control on a couple of different occasions, but they are one of 4 teams that are going to be sporting new uniforms this year, and I'll get into these in just a second, but I don't know if you guys are aware that now you are going to be allowed more uniforms than ever before in the NFL.
Money.
You're going to be allowed multiple helmets, more than 2. I think is the cap 3 or 4? I think it's 3 for the helmets. But there's still some rules that are in place as far as like you can't just mix and match everything. Like you have to have like here's your alternate and here's your this. And I guess there's some mixing and matching. I need to
special
read
events
more.
like Thanksgiving Day, etc.
Yeah, things like that, but just your typical alternate uniform or your color rush uniform, like those types of things. They kind of have it still set up, but now they've done it to where you can have more helmets. And yes, a big part of it is money. We've seen the NBA. They've gotten to the point where, like, I don't even recognize teams when they play some of the times when they wear their alternate uniforms because they don't even go, like, it's just like a completely different color scheme. It's different everything, and it's paying tribute usually to some historical, person or event from the city, like the City Connect uniforms you see in baseball as well, similar things where they don't always wear their typical colors. So, we've seen other leagues kind of go outward with being creative and mixing it up. All of it circles back to money, of course, but there has been this this new rule allowing teams a 3rd helmet design, so it was 3, not 4, and you can have that for 2024 if you are one of the teams that was undergoing a redesign, which is what the Houston Texans were. They are one of 4 teams getting these new uniforms, and so that's what they unveiled in full here this week after some of that did get put out there a little bit early. If you could pop those back up, if at all possible, Garrett, the Houston Texans ones. There they are. You've got the red helmet, the traditional helmet there in the middle, and then their ode to H-Town here there on the right. You've got 4 different. You got the all reds. You've got the all navies. You've got the traditional navy on white, and then the traditional white on navy. Even though there's little tweaks to those as well. So those are all the Houston Texans uniforms now, and they are, I guess, pretty cool in some ways. There's other. I don't love the red helmet, like the ode to the Vikings helmet almost. I'm not infatuated with that, but I do like Houston incorporating the red. The right helmet that is very much like a hip hop H-Town kind of ode.
Absolutely, even that's what I was going to say.
That's cool. It's got the Columbia blue, as you'll notice, and apparently it was, I guess, when they were talking about these uniforms, there was some pushback from the Titans on how much blue could be used, and so I guess they were able to do what they could with it, but they couldn't just go full on, I love you, love you blue uniforms. But what do y'all think about the Houston Texans new uniforms and just the idea that we're now going to be seeing probably most NFL teams within the next few years are all going to have 3 helmets, 4 sets of uniforms?
Yeah. The Cowboys and the Packers and the Steelers probably won't. They're kind of the legacy thing, but you never know.
They have their Thanksgiving uniforms. They have the blue, and they have the ones with
the star, double star on the shoulders, and
like
the
the
white helmet.
1960s or whatever.
Yeah, they have the throwbacks, which is fine. I'm not nuts about the red. I don't
love the red.
I'm not nuts about the red. The redesign of the classic normal uniform is good to me. The blues, I like the helmet quite a bit. The whole Titans-Texans rivalry, taking it to a new level with the Oilers jerseys and the trolling and all that. Bud Adams family has done there, to me, is really interesting. And look, I love spice thrown at anything, especially petty stuff like that, into an NFL rivalry. So bring it on. I do hate the name, the Houston Texans. It feels like the most generic thing in the world.
That's the most generic name of all time.
Yeah, it's just, they
I've hated it since they announced it.
Yeah,
well, it also was a former name. It used to be the Dallas
Texans.
Yeah,
It's not even that. Again, that name sucked too.
Yeah.
Like when they moved to Kansas City, they didn't become the Kansas City Missourians.
Yeah.
Like they thought it was.
So I always thought their uniforms were pretty clean. I like what they used, the one on the left.
Well,
and
it's
also
not
in the
about
middle.
whether they're clean or not. It's about their.
I was just making a point.
Yeah.
But the red one is a little bit much for me. And the other one, I can't get I guess I see what they're doing there with some of that Columbia blue. But that helmet on the right-hand side, I thought that could have been a team out of high school, team out of Houston.
Or out of the XFL. I mean, it's kind of all in between. That's not Columbia blue. They have to call it H-Town blue because of the whole issue with the Oilers uniforms and Love You blue and Columbia blue and all of those types of things. So that one on the right's mostly black. Red letters, red numbers, powder blue, or H-Town blue as they're calling it, and then that H. So that's kind of the one that I think most people will draw to or be drawn to. Like I said, don't love the red. And then the regular uniforms, I mean, pretty much the same, although you can see the horns on the shoulders are a little bit of a change up there. So those are the Houston Texans' new uniforms. And again, if you are one of those teams that was undergoing a uniform redesign this offseason, of which they were one of those, you are allowed to go ahead and add the third helmet to your collection. Now, everybody else can do this next year, no matter what. You can all have your third helmet if you want to go sell more replicas or just have more options. But the Texans were also joined by the Jets, who unveiled their uniforms a few days ago, very much like basically what they had 20, 30 years ago.
Yep, I thought their
that I
uniform
watched
back
in the
then was
90s
good. Yep.
that I got tired of and thought, man, they need to change their uniforms. And now it's like they're cool again, which is just how I guess it all works. The Lions unveiled their new uniforms a few days ago. Those look pretty sharp. They've got all black uniforms. They've got some different options that are unique to them and also new. But there was also the other one that was dropped in full today, which was the Denver Broncos. And here are the new Denver Broncos uniforms. And I have not seen very good reviews on these. The easy layup that they had right there in front of them was to go to, like, do what the Jets did and go back to what you had in the 90s and then maybe put a new spin on it. And they elected to not do that, but to kind of combine all sorts of different eras, it looks like here, and an ode to Blue Mountain State or, some other... I mean, does it not look like that?
It does look like
Blue Mountain State. That one on the right is actually exactly Blue Mountain State.
It looks like the Chargers.
That one on the right is almost exactly Blue Mountain State.
So you've got the shade of orange and navy, the shades of orange and navy as they've always kind of had. But those are the new options there for the Denver Broncos. And I've seen some good reviews of the Texans. Not everybody loves everything about them. These... a lot of Broncos fans are like, you had the easiest layup of all time. Why did you not just go with the old John Elway type uniforms?
Yeah, the Orange
and maybe,
Crush even before that, yeah.
Which I also used to not like after a while. And I was like, hey, when they switched it up, I was like, great. But now, what's old is cool again. And sure enough, that's the route that I thought, and most people thought they were going to go. But they've changed them up a little bit more than expected. So the first new uniforms for them since 1997, they call it the Mile High Collection. And it's inspired by Denver's proud tradition, Colorado's landscape, and Broncos
I don't see
country.
anything about their landscape on any of those.
I mean, I'm sure there's a detail somewhere on like the sock or something that we're just we're missing out on. But yeah, I don't love those. There's also another picture of like the Navy helmet with the white jersey and then orange pants. It's almost got like some Boise feel to it. So, yeah, those are a couple of the new uniforms unveiled. So all four teams that have new uniforms have unveiled them now. And so there you go with that. We'll see those in full. But I do feel we're headed to a direction where, especially for the older crowd, it's going to be hard to, like, who's playing?
Yep.
Who's that? And you're going to have to explain, like, oh, that's their third alternate uniform that they wear now in Denver, Houston, or wherever. So there was that. Elsewhere, and some other news from the NFL, the Chiefs announced yesterday the extensions of Andy Reid, Brett Veach, and Mark Donovan, basically taking all of their power structure and getting them to remain under contract for the foreseeable future. So right before, getting kind of things fully underway, you've got your owner, your GM, and also your head coach that are now locked down as well. Reed and Veach will be under lock and key until 2029. And through this deal, Andy Reid he's expected, it's not official, expected to be the league's highest paid coach. So that is what he's staring down. And that would pass Sean Payton, who's making, you're starting to get to the $20 million NFL head coaching salary. I don't know if you guys realize that or not. But with the Andy Reid extension, we'll see what the final numbers are. But it's looking at more than $18 million per year for Andy Reid, which would be number one over Sean Payton. So the champs with more to celebrate, and anybody wishing for there to be like a nail in the road to pop a tire, it just doesn't appear to be on the horizon right now for Kansas City, as their power structure and their quarterback are are all aligned, so to speak, that alignment that you look for.
I did see where someone in the upper administration, Patrick Mahomes, mentioned that he's been a part of a lot of the decision-making, moved on to some other team, I guess, in the same division. I'm not sure who it was. But you're right. They have the spine, the ownership, the president, GM, and the head football coach.
Yep. Bengals have re-signed backup quarterback Jake Browning to a 2-year exclusive rights deal. So we saw quite a bit of him last year in place of Joe Burrow. So his contract will run through 2025. Meanwhile, we're just talking about the Broncos. Zach Wilson, former BYU quarterback, the latest member of the Denver Broncos, as he's finally out of New York. And we'll have a new opportunity along with, the new uniforms and Sean Payton still getting his groove back, so to speak. But the Jets traded Wilson to the Broncos for a 7th-round pick. They traded him and a 7th-round pick to the Broncos for a 6th-round pick earlier this week. So there you go with that. New digs for Zach Wilson, and we'll see how all that plays out. And then Matt Ryan officially retired from the NFL yesterday. So another highly decorated quarterback calling it a career after 14 years and 65,000-plus passing yards.
Made $300 million in his career.
So there's a few notes on just some transaction things going on right there. Meanwhile, a couple of other notes. Do we have time here?
Yeah,
we need to go?
Got a few minutes.
You got about 6 or 7 minutes.
Caitlin Clark is going to be just fine, folks, even though the WNBA doesn't pay what some people feel that it should pay. We all knew her endorsements are going to be the key to her financial success to begin with, and she is reportedly going to sign an 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike, according to the Wall Street Journal. It would put her in the same group of Nike-exclusive athletes like Kevin Durant and LeBron James. And as far as the WNBA goes, Elena Delle Donne, Sabrina Ionescu, amongst those with the Nike-exclusive contracts. Apparently, Under Armour had offered her $16 million over 4 years. Adidas had offered her $6 million over 4 years. Adidas, what the...
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Be better.
Like, what are you even doing?
There's a whole movie now out about how Adidas lowballed Michael Jordan. So,
yeah, well, I mean, they're probably spending that all on Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Is probably where all of their money's going right now, or to soccer athletes. But yeah, Adidas, I'd be embarrassed if that was even mentioned if I was them. Puma also apparently kicked the tires, but they realized what the price tag was going to be, which was at least $3 million per year per her PR folks, or agents, I guess. And so it was Nike in the end, offered her originally $3.5 million a year, but didn't include a signature shoe. But they talked to her about being like the Kobe Bryant, the face of their entire women's line and all of that. And then eventually, as they negotiated, she did get her own signature shoe. So she's going to be making huge money. She had already signed an NIL deal with Nike back in 2022, but that expired here recently. So $28 million over 8 years and a signature shoe with Nike. That is Caitlin Clark, her latest endorsement go around.
3.3 or 3.5 a year. That's not bad on top of what she's going to get with the Panini card, and then there's another. Yeah, she's doing really well. Doing good. And as the numbers that she brought to the table, the numbers she could bring to the table, the WNBA draft, the money is there. They're going to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I'm sure those shoes will sell really well. If ticket sales and TV ratings are any indication, then she's going to be A-okay as far as that that goes as well. Meanwhile, Zach Edey announced he is planning to enter the NBA draft. The big man from Purdue fell just short, obviously, in the national championship game to UConn, but no surprise, said he felt like it's time. He's shown that he can be a physical presence offensively and that he can also play defense, that he can guard in space, he can defend guards, so on and so forth. So he feels like he's shown all that he needs to show, and he will be entering the NBA draft. So
I don't know. Big guys like that.
Like that 7'4".
Yeah,
big guys.
Those are larger than the guys that are 7 foot, like Dirk and Durant and stuff, who can shoot it. I always get worried about their feet because we've seen a lot of those players because if the wear, I don't think he's going to be guarding any guards.
No,
he's a hell of a player, but he's not going to be. He's not going to be guarding Russell Westbrook.
Marketing himself and his athleticism at 7'4".
Yeah, he's pretty. And for a guy who he moves pretty well for a guy that's that big. I mean, he doesn't move Wemby well, but God, who does?
Right, yeah.
But, no, look, hey.
Wemby also, if he had the weight that Edey has, would not be moving like that either.
Look, I'm all for the Spurs going Twin Towers again and getting somebody like Edey to pair with Wemby, and let's make this thing work again because this last few years has been very boring for me.
Yeah, I can imagine. You guys got your fill. I don't feel sorry for you at all.
I mean, it's
basically the 2000s.
It was elongated, too. It was like over a 10 or 12-year period.
Sure it's probably like Bill Gates complaining after his divorce, like, oh, man, I don't have use of the jet on Wednesdays.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And you know what? You especially with the Red Sox and Florida State won a title. I mean, you'll be lucky if you ever get a run like that again in your lifetime because that was a pretty good, 2000 to 2000 what?
Well, and the Cowboys
Yeah.
No,
except for them. Look,
except for them.
That's when it's over for you when that happens.
No, yeah. If they bring it back, then I have no room to complain. I'm now
I'm just saying you might not see that again.
No, I'm not going to have a run. But
I've got a full belly of championships.
But I've experienced it. Like the things I want now are a College World Series. And like I would love to see Florida State be good at basketball, but like again, I'm not insane. I'm not. College World Series seems attainable. Like that's what I'd like to see.
A championship or appearance?
No, appearances. I've seen plenty of those. I've seen look, I want them to win the thing.
I just want bowl appearances.
Yeah.
So elsewhere, I mean that's the least they could do up in Lincoln at this point is get back to making bowls on a regular basis. I think that'd make a lot of people happy. Meanwhile, in the NBA. I don't know if y'all saw it last night. Incredible finish. Jamal Murray and the Denver Nuggets beat the Lakers to go up 2-0 as he hits a shot at the buzzer. A crazy shot over Anthony Davis. Was a very fun finish to what was a pretty great night of basketball with the triple header that they had. But tonight, NBA playoffs continue on, triple header. You got Suns at the Timberwolves starting at 6:30 Central Time on TNT. Minnesota's up 1-0, and back at home, you've got Milwaukee hosting Indiana. Bucks at home again, up 1-0. That's at 7:30 on NBA TV. And then back over on TNT for the late night nightcap, you've got the Mavericks at the Clippers. Also, all three home teams are 1-0 in this series. The Clippers beat up the Mavs the other night, tried to salvage it at the end, just ran out of time, but it was not a good look by any means. They're favored once again tonight, but those are your trio of games out of the NBA playoffs, and then you've got a quartet of games when it comes to the NHL playoffs. The Rangers up 1-0 hosting the Capitals at 6 on ESPN. You've got the Panthers hosting the Lightning. Panthers up 1-0, 6:30 on ESPN2, so the ESPN networks are going to be filled. I'm sure Garrett's thrilled with that. Filled with Stanley Cup playoffs. Then back over on ESPN at 8:30, the Winnipeg Jets up 1-0 host Colorado, and then back over on ESPN2 at 9, Vancouver up 1-0 hosting Nashville. So again, just like the NBA playoffs, all the home teams up 1-0 and heading into Game 2. But a very busy night on ESPN networks for the NHL playoffs, and then over on the Turner networks with the NBA playoffs and NBA TV. So there you go. There's a few things off the radar.
NBA and NHL teams were 15-1 in the first round at home. The one lost the Stars last night, got down early to Las Vegas, a team that's dangerous despite their seeding, and lost 4-3. And that was a disappointing for Stars fans. Thank you, Craig. Appreciate it. Great to have the segment back. And every Tuesday and Thursday, for the most part, at 4:45, we have Off the Radar. Coming up next from CBS Sports and 247, Carl Reed Jr. with his perspective on where college football athletics right now. And players who enter the portal, what should be their expectations and how many messages should they get before they enter and when they enter? All of that and more. And this is 365 Sports. Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it. Bob Mock, the owner of 5 locations in the Waco area, and it wasn't long ago there were none. That is why Marco's Pizza is the fastest growing pizza brand in America. Hewitt, Woodway, Robinson, China Spring, and Belmead. Marco's Pizza. Go online, marcos.com, and you can find all the special discounts, code numbers, letters, words, combination of both, where you can get what you want. Order online, you can pick it up, they can deliver it to you too. My favorite is Pepperoni Magnifico, the ultimate when it comes to as much pepperoni as you could put on top of a pizza or pie, and then on top of that, Italian sausage. They have specials for that, wings, salads, whatever size pizza you want. They got cauliflower crust. I'm not a fan of that, but I know some of you might be because you've told me that in the chat room. Also, if you want soft drinks available too, Marco's Pizza. Pizza lovers get it.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels in Waco. Get a 2024 Ram 1500 Lone Star with 0% for 72 months. Don't miss out on this incredible deal. Hurry in today and drive home in the truck of your dreams, only at Allen Samuels in Waco.
Developed by Startup Waco, a nonprofit organization, GXG is a program designed to support the entrepreneurial development of Baylor University student athletes through NIL activations. The program helps student athletes maximize their platforms and offers a comprehensive support system for them to create and grow new businesses that not only benefit themselves, but also uplift the local economy. Fans who wish to support student athletes can donate to GXG via the GXG NIL Fund, BaylorBears.com/GXG. Contributions to support NIL activations through GXG can be made at BaylorBears.com/GXG. For more information, follow @GXG_GreenXGold on social media and visit the official website www.gxg.startupwaco.com. GXG, empowering student athlete entrepreneurship and uplifting the local economy through NIL activations.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 5 o'clock hour is sponsored by Edward Jones Investments, with financial advisor Brad Wilson. Investing his time and experience back to you and your money during today's changing times. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
5 o'clock hour, John McClain, Hall of Fame columnist, will join us. At the bottom of the hour, Paul's top 5 is around the corner. Let's see. I just saw this. Did we mention this earlier about John Emery Jr., Garrett, the running back at LSU, entering the portal?
I don't know if we mentioned it or not, but yeah, he's gone.
He's gone.
Garrett was...
He was one of the top-rated players in the country. Of course, some of these guys were.
Garrett was so sad when I brought it up to him earlier today, just asking what his feelings were. I mean, he almost didn't work. Like, he almost took the day off.
Hey, look, man. I look at it as positive attrition. That group last year was so terrible. This is you've got to get better. I'm not sad with Emery hitting the portal. Best of luck to him, but he just wasn't cutting it at LSU.
Is that why he's not in the studio today? Are you talking about Emery Winter? Is he in the portal?
I mean, he might be.
John
we need to check
John
that.
Emery was high level. Like, that was a guy that was going to be a Heisman candidate, right?
He never developed, man.
No, I'm just saying that was someone when they got him, because LSU and talent that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you like anything they've done in the offseason? Has it scratched any itch?
There's no dramatic moves I've seen that have really gotten my attention. They're obviously going to have to address the secondary because the tackling has been atrocious. So keep an eye on that. And also, like every other team in the country, they're trying to get big men up front along the defensive line to do some damage there because those were two areas, along with the running backs, that they really struggled last year. Outside of those three positions, they're pretty well put together, but definitely keep an eye on the running backs, the secondary, and the defensive line for LSU.
Yeah, Brian Kelly, first year, right? Pretty good. Last year, step back.
I mean, yeah, it was a step back, but you also – that's the hard thing. It's like you took a step back on the record-wise, but you also had one of the best offenses in the nation and the Heisman Trophy winner as your quarterback.
So. Yeah, who I hope is playing in Washington, although
that'd be nice.
Who do you know who to believe? Who do you know?
At this point, you can't believe anybody.
No, anyone who's talking is probably lying about it right now when it comes to the NFL draft. All right, so Carl Reed will join us here in just a moment. Garrett, let us know about that. We locked in Jeff Traylor for Thursday, Joey McGuire for Friday. They'll join us this week on 365 Sports. And again, we'll have head coaches, from the Big 12 and elsewhere around the country over the next couple of weeks and into early May. Kyle Whittingham, a week from Friday, will join us as I try to give you some of the names of the coaches.
Do you think we can get him on Zoom, or do we have to send him a telegram?
No, you're going to do him on the phone.
Yeah, I would think so.
How to get a hold of him?
He might, but, I'm sure he's been on a Zoom, but I would assume that he'd be like, why do we have to do it this way?
No, he's...
Yeah. Grizzled. I love watching him over there on the sideline because I feel like in his mind, he's just like he sees it so differently of just like, let's go out there and knock people around in a way. Yeah, I'm very entertained by Cal Whittingham and the style that Utah plays and how sustainable he's made it because he can do offense and defense is where, we've seen at Iowa, Kirk Ferentz, the same exact kind of coach, but has not adapted his kind of style to the offense though.
Is Kyle Whittingham and Deion, is that night and day right there as far as styles?
That's as close as you can get.
Yeah, I would think so. They're different dudes.
Who would be Kyle? I could play for Kyle. I think I could play for Deion. I wouldn't be talented enough to play for either one of them, but I think I could play for either one of those styles. I kind of liked back in the day when I was old enough to be a decent player athlete. I like the kind of old school. I needed that.
Deion's more old school, I think, than people realize.
I think he is too. I think a lot of his philosophies and stuff are.
Yeah. Like he's got more old school philosophies than people realize. Some of the new school stuff is going to work, and some of it's not working right now. I would say the biggest thing that's not working right now is his recruiting has just got to get a little bit more holistic. I think that he's really only pursuing one avenue fervently, and if he uses all the clubs in the bag, then I don't think there's any stopping him. But right now we're still early on in the Colorado tenure, so the high school recruits aren't going to help you as much.
We're now joined by Carl Reed Jr. from CBS and 247 Sports, Craig Smoak, Paul Catalina, and I'm David Smoak and Garrett Ross running the mothership. Carl, thank you. Coach, I call you Coach. We appreciate your time. I've kind of discussed what I follow you on your timeline. I started doing that a few months back and a lot of philosophical thoughts that you have. Let's start. We were just bringing up Deion, who has players who entered the portal, bringing players from the portal. What are your overall thoughts on how he's handled the first year and a half or so at Colorado?
Well, I think that he's done with his program what he's needed to do for them to find success. A lot of people, when you talk about the transfer portal, it's still kind of new to people. But Colorado is not really in a position to depend exclusively or even from a majority standpoint on high school football players. It was too big of a hill to climb. It was just too much going on. High school players don't even stick around anymore for you to allow them to be developed. So I think that the transfer portal has done something to infuse a level of talent in Colorado that they wouldn't have otherwise been able to get.
Carl, do you think that in the coming years he will use his cachet to get more in front of the high school recruits? Because I know he says he wants them to come to his house, which is a great strategy. But I have a feeling that just given who he is, that if he started showing up in living rooms, that there are coaches who are really good at that may not stand a chance.
Have you ever been anywhere with Deion Sanders before?
No.
So he's not like a regular guy that can just walk down the street or walk in the mall. So I've been with him before, and you talking about if he comes into a neighborhood, you're talking about you will potentially have to have the fire marshal come. Like, that's the amount of people that will come. So it's also a security issue. And I know that when people talk about college coaching, they can look at it a number of ways. But in all honesty, having been with them and been around him, he doesn't have the opportunity to move around like a normal person.
Carl, with the transfer portal turning into what it is where basically we have no restrictions now, it's obviously a beautiful thing for the athletes, but how do you begin to wrap your head around how to even operate these days as far as the appeal of the high school athlete, but the lack of development time that you have now? I mean, what kind of a challenge has this grown into for coaches, some of the unforeseen things potentially?
Well, development is over. It's no more development. It's can you play? Are you ready to play? And that's not necessarily a great thing for the player, but it is what it is. And everybody has to remember it's the college coach's fault while the system is what it is today. They're the ones who abused the old system and made it this way, and things went to court and whatnot. So you just have to be able to adjust, and it definitely is uncomfortable for people. Sometimes kids make bad decisions, but coaches make bad decisions as well, and just people have the right to make the choices they want to make.
So you say there's no development. Does that hurt the game in the end, that players are not able to marinate, so to speak, and get better along the way?
Well, it'll hurt the product of the game, on the mid to lower levels, but the championship caliber teams are going to always get the best players. They're going to always find a way to win and a way to get things done, but you have to be more ready to play when you go in now than you did in the past. You're not going to see college coaches willing to take chances on kids that they could project, 2-3 years down the line, this kid is going to end up being a great player, because you're just not working with that type of time anymore.
I've looked at your Twitter timeline. You've got a lot of different guys that you're kind of high on that are in the portal. Who are some of those guys that you really like that you think can help someone? Because there are guys in the portal that are still developmental, or they're 3-year guys and all that, but kind of maybe the immediate hits for you.
Well, the guys that are in the portal, this window are guys that, are a lot of these are the guys that are getting pulled away from programs from a standpoint of the programs are trying to move on from them. So like Linus Noel is a guy at Texas Southern, a defensive tackle that is getting a lot of interest. You got the big D tackle from TCU. So defensive linemen are at a premium right now if you can find one that can really play. But for the most part, what people don't understand about the second portal window, this is the window full of guys who programs were moving away from.
Carl, when it comes to the handling of the transfer portal, like you said, it's college football's fault. It's the school's fault. It's the coach's fault as much as anything. And I know they tried to kind of like in bad faith say, well, we can't pay the players because then there's going to be agents and this and that. But how much of that side of things have you seen? Like, what can you kind of explain about that side of it? Is there concern about kind of who's handling the players, or do you think that's been better than it was expected to be when that was kind of a scare tactic initially?
There's definitely going to always be concern about who's handling the players and who's giving them advice. I know of several players who got some information from guys that probably told them some things that weren't true because they were trying to make, profit and do business. But at the end of the day, you can be as concerned as you want to be. This is the system that we have, and you better learn to maneuver and deal within this system or you're going to get left behind.
Carl, what would your advice be for a young man that enters the portal? What are all of the checklist of what he or she, depending on sport, but let's say football, what are some things that they need to kind of go through as a cross-check before they do that? And If somebody hasn't contacted them a day or two into it, what does that say?
Well, number one, what I would say to you is that you need to be extremely self-aware about who you are and what you are as a player. The problem with developmental players is that most of them don't believe that they're developmental players, so they can't stick around and be developed because they get antsy and they want to go ahead and they want to move forward, and kind of and get an opportunity to play right away. So I would tell you, number one, you need to be extremely honest and self-aware, and that's really hard for players to do. Number two, you need to really value the education that you're walking away from. And I think that that's something that's really getting lost in this. Guys are walking away from full scholarships, girls as well. On the women's side of sports, they're walking away from full scholarships to roll the dice, so to speak, on if they're going to make it or not. What every athlete needs to understand that we cover, and the people that we're talking about is the top 1 to 5% of guys. That's all everybody wants to talk about. So you might be watching the media, the news, the ranking services, the college coaches and all of that, and you're trying to maneuver like a guy that you don't have the same ability as. And so you're seeing guys do big deals and better position themselves in the draft, but your game doesn't talk loud like that. So the education has to really be a value for you, and you really got to think it through. Most guys that are transferring, they shouldn't. They should stay where they're
at. What did you think of Arch Manning at Texas? And, he had to sit a year, which most guys don't want to do anymore. And, he's going to sit this year as well. But looks like, eventually this is going to really pay off for the Horns.
Special player, and obviously his situation is different. So we can't compare, Arch Manning's situation to a normal player. He's obviously the family he comes from, the way he's been groomed, the way he's been tutored, the way his mental capacity is going to be different because he's dealing with, 2 Hall of Famers for sure, maybe a third one, you looking at. So his upbringing has been different, but he's definitely a special talent. He's playing for Steve Sarkisian, which is arguably the best quarterback coach in all of football. Now, that's at any level. That's high school. That's college or professional. So I think it's definitely going to bode well down the long run for the Longhorns.
I saw the tweet you had out. I guess this might have been on Saturday or Sunday that they said he was only one because his name was Manning. He kind of shut that. We saw a glimpse of him at the end of last year. Not much of one, but he did put on a show, even if it's a spring game.
It's always low-hanging fruit to say that a guy is only in position because of the family that he comes from. But I can assure you that there's a lot of guys that played in the NFL that sons are not any good at football.
Yeah, that's true. Well, and look, and there's a lot of them who didn't get recruited all that well either.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Look, Texas was not. I think it was funny because people would say that Texas was not in any position, especially before last season, where they could just be like, "Yeah, we'll just take them." Like they can't do that. So yeah, sometimes you got to get a little credibility to the kid. I think especially it was really smart of him to go and sit just because the division he was playing in Louisiana, he wasn't going to see a lot of guys that he'll see just in practice at the first day at Texas. And now that he has, it makes him that much better of a player. Like you said, most guys should just stay where they are and get better.
But I'll tell you this, to be totally honest with you, most guys, 90% of the guys don't see that type of talent.
Mm-hmm.
High school to college is different. I don't care if you played on a small team in Louisiana or if you played at IMG or Mater Dei. If who you played against made that big of a difference, then every guy that played at IMG and Mater Dei would be starters as true freshmen and they would be in the NFL, and we know that that's not true.
What are your thoughts, Carl, about the SEC and the Big Ten? And do you think at some point down the road in the next 4 to 5 or 6 years that there will be 2 big conferences and everything else?
Well, they definitely have both made moves to separate themselves from the pack in terms of how they want to conduct the business of college football. You never know. There's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of politics that go into making such a move, and you never know. It would take an extreme amount of courage from leadership to make a move like that. And so I don't like speculating on things, but I would say right now that everybody's going to stay under the NCAA for the foreseeable future.
You have met a lot of people along the way. You've mentioned your friendship with Deion and many, many others. You've coached. You got out of that to become an analyst. What was that decision like, and why did you make that decision?
Well, I think that when you start talking about kind of the way that things are changing, I was already looking for something new and challenging. You have a ceiling as a high school coach, and you can only go so far with it, so high. We had won a state championship. We had been really, really successful. And I got an opportunity. I don't know that I was looking for that kind of put in front of me, and I looked at it. If I didn't get the opportunity, if they didn't come get me, I'd probably still be coaching high school.
Do you feel like that you kind of just say it in a very simple, not saying it's not complicated, but in a simple way, the way you can communicate your point and opinion?
It's just who I am. You know, I can, it's who I am. It's the way I've always been. I try to get straight to the point.
How do you explain Deion Sanders, the football coach, Deion Sanders, the person? We just mentioned this a minute ago. As new as some of the things he's going to try and is trying to do, he still seems to have, Carl, a good old school blood in him.
Well, it depends on who's asking the question. Right, I get a lot of recruits, a lot of kids that have called me, and they'll say they want to play for Coach, at Colorado and even prior to that at Jackson State. But all of them don't understand how disciplined he is and how principled he is. And so in an era where kids are accustomed to doing what they want to do, the way they want to do it, he's really not the guy for that. You're going to really have to do what he wants you to do in a very old school way for you to be able to play for him. In terms of just as a human being, I've met very few people in my life who do exactly what they say they're going to do. And so to me, his word is gold.
Why Colorado? What was, besides the fact it was an opening, he had kind of done what he could do at Jackson State. What was it there? Was it going to be that they're going to let him be him?
I think that's a question for him.
Great answer. That's a great answer.
I've been fascinated with the Cormani McClain, because he was such a highly touted high school player, and to hear his high school coach say that, look, this was, you were going to have to ride him, and he was going to have to do the little things and get him to do that, and if Deion can't make him do it, somebody else is going to have to, but he was worried about it. To see already, to me, that shows a lot about where Deion kind of is as a coach, that he's willing with, a 4-8 team last year to be like, look, potential means nothing to me at this point. You got to do the right thing. What was your take on, letting a guy like Cormani McClain walk out the door like it appeared they kind of needed to?
The high school coach in me, the community leader in me, and the advocate for kids in me will always say this. I want the very best for Cormani, and I hope that he finds a place that gives him everything that he needs and that he works really hard and all his dreams come true.
Carl, what is the fine line in wanting all of that, and yet a young man just doesn't get it or is not mature enough to handle it? How long do you go until you have to say you need to find another place to go?
Well, we don't know for sure what happened, so it's a lot of speculation. But I will say this. I think that you help kids as much as you can for as long as you can. And when you get into a situation, that has to be what always comes first. Coaching is still a labor of love. It's a labor of trying to help turn boys into men. And sometimes, you may not be the best fit, or the kid may not be the best fit for you, but you still wish him the best, and you hope that he finds what he's looking for.
Do you think coaching now, and you mentioned you got out of it because of an opportunity, but do you think coaching now is more difficult than ever before, or is it easier because the rules now favor you accumulating talent?
It all depends on if you see the glass half empty or half full. It all depends on how you're looking at it. For some guys, it has been a major advantage. For other guys, the rules have been at their detriment. It just all depends on how you view the world.
If you could run college football and wave a wand to make it, I don't know if it's better or more stable, what would you do?
Well, the first thing that I would do is I would mandate that every kid that gets a scholarship, that the school has to keep the young man and allow him to finish his education. I would allow transfers in the transfer portal, but I would only allow you to transfer once. You would have to sit until you got your degree on the second transfer. I thought that was a good rule, and I think that things kind of got out of whack with that. I would also do away with the collectives. We got to remember when we started name, image, and likeness, it was supposed to be for players' ability to market themselves off the field. I would stop the pay for play that the collectives brought to the game.
Is that hay out the barn? There's no way you're going to get it back?
It's really hard to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
It is. It absolutely is. What does allowing players an unlimited amount of transfers actually do to the young man?
I don't, it's hard. Everything is different, right? But I would say for the majority of kids, it puts them really behind in terms of graduating. And I think this is also not just you got to look at graduation. Who are your relationships? It used to be a time when the guys you went to college with, the guys you played with, those are the best men in your wedding. Those are the guys in your wedding. Those are the guys that become godparents to your children. Those are the guys you really build a bond with. Well, if you went to 4 years in four schools in 4 years, who are those guys to you now? It has a tremendous impact on the second half of your life. Also, what school are you with? Who's going to help you get jobs? What college coach? What university? What enrichment center at a university? So I don't think that some of those things were looked at. But anytime that you pushed a rule through, there's going to always be unintended consequences. And that's some of those.
Last thing for you, Carl. What have you learned the most about this part of the business from where you were as a coach, as a mentor, and a community leader, as you mentioned, all of that? What have you learned most about being in the media business? What has been something that has surprised you or has been like, man, this is different than I thought?
Nothing surprises me. I've been in the game for 20 years. I've seen it all. I've heard it all. I've watched it all. I would just tell anybody, whether you're coaching, whether you're a player, whether you're in the media, whether you're an agent, wherever you're at in the game is cold. Put your coat on.
I love that. That's true. Thanks for your time, man. It's great we got you on. We appreciate it. Good luck with what you're doing. You're doing a great job. Thanks, Carl.
Thank you, my brother.
Carl Reed Jr. with some philosophical and his thoughts. He's close to Deion. As he mentioned, have you ever hung around Deion? It's a different experience. It's not his fault. I mean, he is who he is, and I guess that's kind of that personality from even when he was a player to what he is now as a coach. And you got to have a bunch of people around him because of security and also to control the crowd, or just because when people see him, they want to gravitate to him. 4-8 Colorado coming up next year. Will be interesting to see if they start as well as they did last year, and can they then, if they don't, can they at least grind through the year and start adding wins together in the Big 12 compared to what was a pretty loaded Pac-12 last year when they started to get worn out and also just could not stop anybody and protect the quarterback. From Carl Reed Jr., we appreciate him for joining the show today, to Hall of Fame columnist John McClain with Craig Smoak and Paul Catalina and David Smoak on 365 Sports. John, first of all, glad you're feeling better.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So, John, it's draft week. The Texans pick at 42. Have you made any adjustments or changes, or is it hard to even project out because there's 41 teams to pick before them?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, Paul, because I write for HoustonTexans.com, and I'm doing a Texans mock draft tonight. Be posted tomorrow. They have 9 picks, starting with 42nd overall. And my first 3 are going to be a defensive tackle, a cornerback, and a safety, because they need help at all those positions on defense. They play what I call a murderer's row of quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Tua Tagovailoa. I mean, it's amazing. Jordan Love, Jared Goff, and Aaron Rodgers. It's amazing the quarterbacks they play, so they better beef up their defense because they don't need a lot on offense when it comes to starters. They need depth, but they still need to improve the defense going against the first-place schedule.
John, the Texans' new uniforms are one of the worst-kept secrets, little leaks here and there along the way. I know you at one point got to get like the behind-the-scenes look at them. They're now fully unveiled, which I'm sure is a huge relief to all involved. Now that they're out there, what are your thoughts, and what have you kind of gathered from the Texans shaking up their style a little bit?
It's the first time they've done it since they were born, and I wrote a column yesterday on HoustonTexans.com about the inaugural uniform reveal, in which I spent the day with the owner, Bob McNair, and I kind of chronicled what that day was like compared to today. And the thing that everybody's talking about here, because there's a lot of speculation about this, they call it H-Town blue. Everybody else calls it Columbia blue that the Oilers wore. Well, the Titans have the rights to that, and originally when the Titans heard that there was going to be some light blue in these uniform changes, they went to the league, and the league had to make sure they approved it. And actually, there is more light blue in their alternate uniform than I thought, and I think it looks great. And I'll guarantee you the Titans are infuriated about it. The owner, Amy Adams-Strunk, but the NFL signed off on it.
John, there's a lot of talk about the quarterbacks, and of course there always is a lot of talk every year about the quarterbacks and how the first 4 or 5 or so might be quarterbacks for the first, whatever. If you start to see speculation about who's jumping up or who's falling down, is it probably just some sort of smokescreen?
No, I think teams are that need quarterbacks because there's so many. There's a report today that the Raiders are trying hard to get the second pick from Washington so they can get Jaden Daniels. And then there's talk, well, does Washington really want Jaden Daniels or do they want Drake May? They're saying people are saying they want Jaden Daniels because he plays the style that Cliff Kingsbury, their new offensive coordinator, has played at Texas Tech and with the Cardinals. So I think if somebody's going to be able to trade up, it's going to be Minnesota trading up to get J.J. McCarthy, maybe 5th overall for the Chargers. Chargers have a lot of needs. They could get 2 ones this year, a 1 next year, and more. But if you want your quarterback, I tell people, if you have a guy you think can take you to the Super Bowl, almost no price is too high, especially 2 number 1 picks and then something in the future. Because would the Texans give up 2 number 1s for C.J. Stroud? Of course they would. And if you think a guy could do for you what Stroud did for the Texans, you better make that deal, because you always can fill in around the quarterback using free agency, the draft, trades. This thing about bypassing a franchise quarterback because you got a lot of needs is hogwash to me. You've got to get the quarterback or you're just spinning your wheels.
Do you think the Giants will be aggressive for a quarterback if the ability to do so falls to them?
Well, that depends on how highly rated that they have somebody like, say, J.J. McCarthy. And I don't think they can stay at 6 and get it. I think you got to go up. And all this will play out in real time because say you traded up to the 5th spot and you're going to take McCarthy, and then all of a sudden somebody trades up with Arizona at 4 and they take McCarthy, and you're, out of luck. And so I think it'll all come down when the teams are when they're on the clock. And as far as the Giants, the coach and GM did not draft Daniel Jones. He got that monster contract. He's going to be there 1 more season. You can't hope you're going to get his replacement next year. If they like a quarterback like McCarthy, they got to do everything they can to get him. Otherwise, Jones will be gone. It'll be good riddance on the part of a lot of people. But then they're going to be like the Raiders. They're going to start Jared Stidham. They're going to be like Denver. Going to start, I'm guessing it's not going to be Zach Wilson. No, Denver's going to start Jared Stidham. And then they trade for Zach Wilson. It's amazing how many teams out there continue to have issues with quarterbacks. Next year's draft is not going to be anywhere nearly as good as this one. When Quinn Ewers is looked at as a number one pick, you better get your quarterback this year.
John, there's been so many stories on the day of the draft. I'll never forget the Laramie Tunsil story about the mask. We were in, I think it was in Chicago, I believe, when that happened. It could have been another place, but when of course, ended up with the Texans now. Is there a favorite phone conversation story that you've learned along the way as the draft pick is supposed to be turned in by a team, whether it's one you've covered or somebody else, and it just got haywire and confused or anything like that?
One year, the Buccaneers, the guy who was in New York, handed in a name, and the name was not the player they wanted to draft. It was Penn State guard Sean Farrell. And the guy misheard. He turned it in. They looked like idiots. Then Sean Farrell became a very productive guard for them. Bo Jackson told the Buccaneers right up till the end, do not draft me. I won't play for you. They did it anyway. He didn't play for them. Just like John Elway told the Colts, I'm playing baseball with the Yankees. I do not want to play for Frank Kush, the head coach, and they drafted him anyway. Then they had to make one of the worst trades in NFL history when they sent him to Denver. So there's been some manipulating. The thing about Eli Manning, because Archie and Eli didn't want to play for A.J. Smith. He was the general manager of the Chargers. That was a really, really a difficult guy. And that ended up working out great for the Giants and great for the Chargers. You know, they got Phillip Rivers. But if they hadn't done that and gotten Rivers, they would have kept Drew Brees, who's going to go to the Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility.
John, Jerry Jones told the media today in a very, very lengthy press conference that he is very happy with their roster, and obviously he's not going to say otherwise. But the Cowboys have, run into this salary cap hell. I wonder, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I'm starting to think that, Jerry gets a lot of the blame for this, but if they just let Jerry loose to go do what he wanted to do, they might be a little bit better, but I think Stephen Jones is holding him back.
Yep, Johnny Manziel would have been the quarterback.
That's true. That's true.
The thing about the Cowboys, I strongly believe they will sign Dak Prescott to a multi-year deal, lowering his salary cap. They will be fair with him because they don't have any other choice. Because if they're not, then he can walk. But he wants to be there. He's a great guy. He's a good leader. What's he won? 2 playoff games. But I think they'll get that worked out. That'll clear up a significant amount of cap space for next year. And I think with Will McClay is the most influential guy when it comes to personnel. He's turned down GM jobs to stay there. No telling what Jerry Jones pays him like a general manager, I'm sure. But I think the Cowboys will have a good draft.
They've done well with Will McClay. They've drafted well. There's no way anyone knows exactly the right formula, but some school or program seem to have done better over the years, whether it's the Steelers or others. Is there somebody in particular that you think might have had the best blueprint of anybody else overall in the last 25 years when it comes to personnel and the draft?
The Ravens are always good. They won 2 Super Bowls. One of the things they do, they will let players walk and get a 3rd-round compensatory pick and reload. And whether it was Ozzie Newsome or Eric DeCosta, who's now the general manager, they have a tried and true formula that John Harbaugh believes in, and that's why, barring injury, they're almost always a Super Bowl contender despite taking low. Now, the Patriots picked low, but it wasn't like they were loading up on talent. They had the greatest quarterback in history who bailed them out and helped them win the 6 Super Bowls. But when I look at teams now, I look to the Raiders. And by the way, people wonder, I see speculation about the all-time greatest draft. without question. There's nobody can even bring anybody else up. In 1974, Chuck Noll had total control of the Steelers, and he picked Lynn Swann, John Stallworth, Jack Lambert, Mike Webster, and 4 Hall of Famers, and signed Donnie Shell as a free agent, and he's in the Hall of Fame too. There has never been a hall like that, and never will be again.
Golly, I didn't realize those guys were all at the same time. That's nuts, John.
By the way, Paul, I thought of one more story about you wanting Jerry to run the show.
Yeah.
When Quincy Carter was coming out of Georgia, his personnel people told him, we can get this guy in the 4th or 5th round. And Jerry had been making calls. And when it came time in the 2nd round, Jerry insisted they draft him. They said, no, Jerry, don't do it. We can get him in the 4th round. No, I got sources telling me if we don't take him, somebody else is. So they took him in the 2nd round, and we all know how that worked out.
Yeah, I was there the morning he was cut.
I'm glad that you shot down my theory.
Sorry about that, Paul.
No, I'm trying to figure out, there are teams that are far worse at this than the Cowboys that have that have actually gone further than the Cowboys in the playoffs. The Cowboys seem to find their way into a new puddle of crap every time that kind of all comes from the same strategy, but it's a different puddle of crap each time instead of it doesn't make sense that they have not been able to, for 30 years now, break through.
It's only 30 years. You're getting impatient.
Yeah, but I mean, they have had they're measured in some franchises, like in college, certain schools are measured by championships or runs, but they've been good. They've been good. There's some that have languished in bad forever and ever and ever, Paul.
Yeah.
At least they get your hopes up. At least you have your blood flowing, right?
I don't know. Right now, I'm just so, I don't have any kind of hope. Every time I, see if somebody who's a fellow Cowboys fan, oh, this is the year. I'm like, shut up. We're not friends anymore. Go away. Don't follow down the primrose path.
Well, just remember this, and I hope you can get some confidence in this. Don't forget, the Cowboys are all in.
They're all
Yes.
John, I told Paul this. I was driving from a meeting, and I was listening to the start of a Jerry, Stephen, Will McClay, who I never really heard much from, and also Mike McCarthy press conference that began at 1:30. On the way to the studio at around 2:40, they were still going. It was still going. They're drafting.
Did Will McClay get to say anything?
I never heard him once during that time. I don't know if he did or not, but
he's been very smart to stay on the back burner and be content to collect millions while Jerry and Stephen were out front.
Yep. All right, John, you and I traded a text or two about Scott Drew. Obviously, that's now an old story. He is locked in. Not only that, they pick up the guard from Duke, Jeremy Roach, who joined us yesterday, among some others that are probably on the way. Your thoughts about your alma mater taking care of business there?
Well, first of all, I think that was tremendous. Second, I see Alvin Brooks may go to Kentucky and take, what's that kid's name, Lanscombe? Anything to that?
Well, I don't know if he's going to take Edgecombe, and I don't know if he's taken the job yet, but he's certainly interviewing.
Well, Edgecombe, hopefully he won't take Edgecombe, and I hope they get that big man from Tennessee, because I do weekly show in Knoxville, and they don't want to lose him, but he's gone. And what a deal that would be. And as I told you, David, whether the $1.5 million is true or not, it needs to stay out there, because that means every kid, every parent, every agent's going to be thinking about Baylor.
Yep.
And then 1.5.
Absolutely. By the way, they just released the Big 12 and Big East 2024, the battle, the back and forth. Baylor is going to play at UConn. The two-time defending champions against Baylor. That ought to be a hell of another one of those great non-conference games that will test a few people. All right, John, again, glad you're feeling better. Hope you're doing well. Have a great day, sir.
Guys, thank you very much. Sick 'em Bears.
Sick 'em Bears. John McClain from, of course, NFL Hall of Famer, getting ready for the NFL Draft, which starts on Thursday night. By the way, speaking of one of our sponsors, Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center, just between Richland Drive and Valley Mills, you can get any cigar that you want. They have them. 48-foot walk-in humidor, the best brands, Arturo Fuente, Romeo and Julieta, Ashton, Macanudo, Padron, Cohiba, Rocky Patel. They have them. Plus, they have that CBD product, a gummy that helps you fall asleep at night instead of tossing and turning, called Vita Dreams. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Townwest Shopping Center, Carroll, Ashley, and Cheyenne, between Richland Drive and Valley Mills.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5, brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
All right, it's NFL draft time, so I thought I'd take a different take. Like, everybody can give you a top quarterbacks or top wide receivers, and I've done those before. But these are my top 5 knuckle breakers in the draft. When I call them knuckle breakers, tough guys who if you get them on your team, they're going to be the old school. Look, you heard John just mention Jack Lambert.
Yep.
These are guys that he would be proud of.
Okay.
I heard when I was a kid, I went to when we were living in Bossier City, we went to the Independence Bowl luncheon. And Danny White, who I actually wound up doing a podcast with a couple years ago, was the keynote speaker. And he said about Jack Lambert, they used to just keep him in a cage, feed him raw meat, and show him videos of the quarterbacks. That's kind of how they did. These are guys who are in a cage and fed raw meat. They're not all offensive linemen or defensive linemen. They're various guys, but they're various levels of tough guys that are in this draft. And if your team gets them, I think you're in for a good, some good output from them over their career. So number 5. He's going to be picked a little bit later because he's from Northern Illinois. But this dude, Christian Boyd, is a defensive tackle and absolutely gets after the guy in front of him like he insulted his grandmother. It is like I kept seeing him mention Jim Nagy, like put up some Senior Bowl video of him. So then I went up and looked, watched some Northern Illinois highlights just to make sure that this isn't somebody falling in love with the guy. He is, again, a smaller school guy, but you put this dude in your roster and he's going to get in fights in his own practice. Christian Boyd, this is a guy to keep an eye on. I would say fourth round or below, maybe sneaks into the bottom of the third, but I would say fourth round or below, a Saturday pick, but someone who you're going to like having on your team because he's going to mix it up.
It's interesting to me how kids' names are spelled these days.
Yeah, that is the astute observation. I know. The rest of the four guys you probably have heard of, but I did want to mention Christian Boyd because if he does hit, it's going to make me look really smart.
All right.
Number 4, Joe Alt, tackle from Notre Dame. He could be the first offensive lineman off the board. There's a lot of guys up there, Troy Fatnow, Talisa Fuaga, Ola Fashimu, Faishawa. I can't ever say his name. But Joe Alt is the old school Notre Dame left tackle. And I don't see him getting past the Titans at 7 because they need a guy like this really, really badly, especially when you look going forward, pairing him with Peter Skoronski from Northwestern, who they drafted last year. But Joe Alt is a dude who will absolutely protect your quarterback with every fiber of his being.
Yeah, I mean, he's up at the top of all the mock drafts. So big dude, big time background as far as, his experience with the Irish and, great player that's going to be a top 10 pick. I think the highest rated non-quarterback or wide receiver is what he's pretty much pegged at across the board from what I've seen.
Yeah. Number 3, Peyton Wilson, a linebacker for North Carolina State. He's had some injury history, but
he'll be a Cowboy.
Oh, it's probably, yeah. Well, I mean, look, and he wouldn't be a bad, they got to draft a linebacker somewhere in this. And if Peyton Wilson is the guy, or Edgerrin Cooper, or maybe Jeremiah Trotter Jr., which would crack me up considering his dad was an Eagle and a Redskin. But Peyton Wilson is a guy who sideline to sideline, vicious, gets after the ball carrier. And I think the only reason he's fallen out of, say, maybe top 50 pick consideration is because he's had some injury history, but completed last year healthy, got through the draft process really healthy. So as we get to Thursday, I wouldn't be surprised to see if we take him fairly early on in the second round because he does a lot of things that most linebackers can't do. And if you're the Cowboys trying to replace the now retired Leighton Vander Esch, that's a pretty good comp for him because I would have said that's kind of Leighton Vander Esch's attitude too, where he will break your knuckles.
Very good player. He's one of those that I voted for, a couple of those after the season, postseason award type of, I guess, honors. But, another guy, like you said, is he healthy?
Yeah. Number 2, my man, Braden Fisk. I wish he'd been at Florida State for 4 years, but Western Michigan transfer, got better each and every week. And if you watch down the stretch, especially post-Jordan Travis injury, Braden Fisk played his best football after that, where the defense took it on their backs. I mean, he is not like an oversized defensive tackle. Like he's not in the Tavondre Sweat mode. I mean, he can play kind of all the positions mode, but he will get in there and mix it up. Again, I love him like a son. Maybe more than his actual parents do. But Braden Fisk is going to move up into, I'm going to say he's a top 40 pick because people have started watching his film. He did great at the combine. All those things are coming together, and there's a defensive coordinator out there who's going to fall in love with this guy because of the motor he plays with and the fact that he is in an absolute street fight from the minute the ball is kicked off until the minute the game is over, and will be an asset to an NFL team.
Don't have much to add to that. Yeah.
Well, he played next to Verse, right? Is that?
Yeah.
That's not a bad 1-2 punch right there.
In fact, what they did later in the season was they'd put, if Verse was on the left, he would switch to the right. So they kind of had, they did a lot of stunts. It was very impressive. Now, Verse is a tough guy. I wouldn't necessarily call him the knuckle breaker. But number 1, and this is my favorite offensive lineman in the entire draft, is Zach Frazier from West Virginia. This dude, absolutely, he's in the In the Mike Webster mold. Who was the center for the Bears in '85?
Oh God.
McMichael was on the offensive line.
Defensive line.
Defensive line. But there's who's the off but there's I know I'm thinking of him and I can see him in my head.
I want to say it's not Tecklenburg because he played at Baylor, but there was a guy like that name, that similar name.
Yeah, like that kind of dude. Old school Ray Donaldson. Ray Donaldson was like that. Just Dermontti Dawson. He's in that mold of a center. Zach Frazier. I actually prefer him to Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, who's also could be on this list, but having watched him
Jay Hilgenberg.
Jay Hilgenberg. Thank you. Jay Hilgenberg. That's the guy I was thinking of. But he is one who just, I could just see his fingers taped individually, but blood running down and him not caring. And then you say, whose blood is that? And he'll go, what does it matter? He's that dude, Zach Frazier. If you get him, your offensive line will be way better. And the Cowboys need a center. That's who I want them to get.
The grinder.
Yes.
He's a grinder.
Yes.
Still wonder what would happen Dallas. Who was the center that had the strange...
Travis Frederick.
Frederick.
Guion Beret, yeah.
Yeah, the Guion Beret. Gian Beret?
Guion Beret.
Yeah, that was such a hellacious offensive line. And then again, it kind of started to, that obviously did not help when all of a sudden he could not play again. All right, Craig, thank you very much. Paul Catalina, thank you. Emery Winters dialing up 365 Sports tonight. Garrett, thank you. Good to see you. Go Tigers, right?
Go Tigers.
And Jack McKenzie doing what he always does. Levi Caraway covering Baylor baseball as they try to get themselves in position to be a part of the Big 12 baseball tournament winding down the last few weeks of the year. I saw with the Baylor, the UT baseball coach, David Pierce, was suspended for a couple of games for arguing too much.
Well, he's about to be suspended from that job.
I know a lot of people aren't happy with them, but they did win 2 out of 3 against TCU. All right, thank you, everybody that watches, listens. We'll be back again tomorrow. I'm David Smoak. Good night. Hit like and subscribe, please, if you haven't already. This is 365 Sports.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI,